The Blast from Our Past Network.
Lock your doors, close your windows, turn out your lights, for chills and thrills await you. It's time for Podcasting After Dark with your hosts, Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer. Stay with a friend, say your prayers as grisly ghouls close in to seal your doom. Tonight's episode, Godzilla, starring Akihiko Hirata, Momoko Kôchi, and Akira Takarada.
Ba-na-bum, ba-na-bum, ba-na-ba-na-ba-na-bum, ba-na-bum.
Da-na-dun-da-na-na-na-na-na.
Roar!
Roar! I'm Godzilla! Roar!
Like roar. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcasting After Dark. I am one half of the Pad Team proper, Corey, a.k.a. Sleazy C. Joined with me, as always, is my brother from another mother, Zach, the Total Snackage Schaefer. And if you couldn't tell by our horrible rendition, we are discussing Godzilla, the original 1954, not what is now called Godzilla King of the Monsters with Raymond Burr, which came out in 56. This is the one sans Raymond Burr. This is the original, the OG Gojira 1954. This is awesome. I'm so excited to be doing this. Zach, I'm excited to be doing it with you too, buddy.
Godzilla! I'm sorry. I was looking at a piece of poo on the ground from my dog. I'm kidding. Dude, I am equally doing that same happy dance inside. Robert Ortiz, Godzilla, bless ya. For picking this movie as your Patreon pick, my friend. You are an eclectic mofo with very vast and diverse taste, from Excalibur to hey, oh, there goes Tokyo, I'm Godzilla. Woo! That's it, Blue Oyster Cult who does that song?
Yep, that was Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah, and then there was some weird cover, I think, by someone covered it. Anyways, Godzilla. Robert Ortiz, thank you for choosing this as your Patreon pick. If everyone listening, Robert Ortiz is our Patreon producer for this episode. He is at the highest tier on our Patreon, patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. If you sign up to the highest tier on our Patreon, patreon.com/podcastingafterdark, you can be a producer too, where you choose the movie, we break it down for you. I'm not promising that it'll be a good breakdown, but I will promise that we will break it down. But I think we're batting 1,000 right now from everybody.
We're doing pretty good. We haven't got any complaints or anything.
I mean, look, everybody from Aaron Gilmer, Cam Sully, Crystal, and welcome back, Crystal, by the way. Welcome back. Everybody who's signed up for the highest tier, they know what they're getting. It's fun. It's worth it. It is everything that you would hope it would be in a breakdown and more. The only thing more we could do is literally be in your home breaking it down to your face live. But we're recording this at 8 o'clock on the West Coast. It's about 11 o'clock where Robert is. I don't think Robert would want us laying on his bed breaking it down with him. Robert, you remember that scene? Where, and then the guy went, ugh.
Yeah, and it's a great way for, Zach, you and I to sometimes get movies that maybe we would never, have reviewed, or maybe not reviewed for a while. I kind of imagine we would have landed on Godzilla at some point, because we'll talk about what it meant for both of us growing up. But also, too, there's been movies that neither of us have seen before, like Knockabout, which was the last Patreon breakdown that we did.
Thank you, Paulette, for that
yep.
one. Knockabout was fantastic. Martial art madness in Podcasting After Darkville.
Yeah, exactly. So it's great because sometimes there's movies we've never seen before, like Android that Cam Sully brings, and sometimes it is movies we have seen and loved and may not have ever come to the show or might not have come for years, to come.
Like Monster Squad.
Yes, Monster Squad. Crystal brought that one back in the day. So I reiterate everything Zach just said. Thank you, Robert. This is fantastic. Since I'm talking, I'll just say what Godzilla means to me and, my history with it. And then Zach can sort of give his and give Bodhi's review of the film as well. I'm going to guess, Zach, sort of similar to you, grew up watching the Raymond Burr version on TV, creature features type of thing, Sunday morning. It's just, I don't know the first time I saw it, but it's just always been in my life. You just know it. It's one of those movies you just sort of know. Now, I never saw the original Godzilla, the 1954 version, until I saw it at the an AFI theater in Silver Spring called the AFI Silver. I saw it, I believe, late 90s, could be like 99 or something like that, or maybe 2000. It was projected in 35 millimeter. Absolutely amazing. I saw it by myself. One of the few movies I went in. Actually, all the movies that I saw at the AFI Silver, I saw by myself. So I saw...
I'm hugging you right now.
I saw Godzilla there, 1954 in 35 millimeter. I saw Jaws. That was the only time I've ever seen Jaws on the big screen, and it was projected in 35 millimeter.
Shadows eyes.
But dude, I saw Lawrence of Arabia there, projected in 65 millimeter, and I was stone cold sober, and I had like an eyegasm from watching it.
Lawrence of Arabia. He came to fight the Turkish. If anyone knows what I'm talking about with that reference, DM us on our Instagram page, and I will send you some stickers. If you know what that reference is from, because I've mentioned it before.
I don't, so I don't get any stickers.
And that should be a movie that Cam Sully chooses to break down by. Cam Sully will know. I bet you anything. He'll be like, I know that reference.
And moving past just the original Godzilla, I've seen so many of the other Godzillas, but I'm sure I've missed a few. I didn't watch them in order or anything like that, although I did go through a period of time around the same time, like late 90s, with my buddy Xer, and we'd watch a bunch at his house. My personal favorite Godzilla stuff is the Heisei era, which is right after this era. I think it's called the Showa era. And the Heisei era, I believe, kicks off around mid to late 70s and goes through the late 80s, I believe. But that was always my favorite Godzilla. Zach, what is your familiarity with this movie in particular, but also just Godzilla in general?
Godzilla. I'm hoping.
God damn it, Zilla!
I'm hoping my mic doesn't pick up the Tokyo drift that's going on outside right now. Okay. This might come as a shock or a slight disappointment to our faithful listeners, but I have very little familiarity with the Godzilla franchise. My brother, Eric, infamous Eric, was a huge Godzilla fan, had all the vinyl figures of all the different characters and whatnot back in the day. I inherited those toys as he got older and got too cool for them, or just stopped playing with them, and then I would play with them. I remember seeing Godzilla movies on Creature Feature Saturday and probably Creature Feature Sunday as well on Thriller TV 20. Probably saw them on TV 44 or TV 36 in the Bay Area. But I don't remember all of them by name. I remember seeing the Raymond Burr one. Parts of it, at least. I'm sure I saw the whole thing when I was a kid, but it didn't have a real solid recollection. I do remember throughout the years watching them and having a lot of fun with them. The era that you spoke of, that you're fond of, the colorized versions, and more of like the, Johnny Sacco kind of vibe to it, an Ultraman vibe.
Yeah.
That's the stuff I grew up on as well and enjoyed. But, I didn't have like a real heartstring pull to Godzilla back in the day. And then, the Brandon, what do you call it? The Broderick
Oh, yeah, Matthew Broderick version.
Matthew Broderick version comes out, which was fine. The Bryan Cranston one, which is fine. This current franchise, which is decent, I'm okay with it. I was more of like a hero guy versus a monster guy. So I didn't gravitate towards the Godzilla movies. Didn't dislike them, just didn't watch them. They weren't at the top of my list. Am I going to see the newest Godzilla movie? Oh yeah, I definitely am. And I'm going to see it with Bodhi because Bodhi loves Godzilla movies. So, and I'll get to his review cut to the chase. This is the first time I really remember seeing this version of Godzilla. And I watched it with Bodhi for the first time. He was really excited with it. Just like I was and he was when we watched Them last year, when you chose your Them movie. And I was like, maybe we got a little theme going on. Every year we do a black and white movie. For Podcasting After Dark.
Yeah, no, I actually was thinking the exact same thing, how this is kind of a nice pairing with Them. And I think the other oldest movie we did was Terror Express, Horror Express.
Yep, but that was in color.
Yeah, it was in color. So yeah, maybe we can kind of once a year keep the giant monster movie, whether it's giant insects or a kaiju something, because there's also, remember, like there's also that whole era of like tarantula and stuff like that from the 50s here. But yeah, man, I'm down with that. Or just a black and white movie because I love black and white films. I think Them looks great. I think this looks great. And, I'll get what Bodhi thinks of it as well. But I was kind of surprised at Halloween time when I showed my nephew, who was 8 and had already seen Aliens. He picked, out of the Universal Monster films, he picked Invisible Man. And I didn't know how that was going to play at all because, it's black and white. It's so old. He fucking loved it. I don't think the black and white aspect had any problem whatsoever. So I'm also now thinking about showing my nephew a Godzilla film. I thought maybe one of the a newer one, quote unquote newer, but from the 70s or 80s. But maybe this one. Maybe I show him this one. So what was Bodhi's review?
So just to keep it as succinct as possible, he loved it. When the movie ended, he was like, that was really good. I go, really? You liked it? And he goes, yeah. He laughed at certain points, and I'll call that out when we get to it. Just like he laughed in Jaws 2 when the woman doused gasoline all over herself. That was unintentionally hilarious. And to this day, I totally agree with him. It is unintentionally hilarious, or just straight up hilarious. He loved it, and he loves... But he's a film lover. Like, he likes movies, and he's one of the rare kids, and maybe Gray Bear's this way as well, like, that can actually sit through a whole movie, whether it's 90 minutes or 2.5 hours, and not talk, or have to get up and move around. Like, we went and saw Ghostbusters, and I see these little kids running up and down the aisles, and I'm like, why are they here? Like, what a waste of money, And Bodhi got that too. He's like, why are they here? I go, I have no idea, dude. It's really annoying. But Godzilla is one of those characters he loves, and he was engrossed through the whole thing. And we watched it. There's no dubbing, so it's subtitles. It's his first foreign film he watched with subtitles. He's 9. And I said, are you able to read the subtitles? He goes, oh yeah, I can read it. I was blown away. I'm like, he's reading subtitles. It's a black and white movie. It's old AF movie, and he loved all of it. So there's your review. So Robert, thank you for introducing this movie to my son as well.
That's awesome, dude. And that makes me think that I'm going to show Gray Bear this at some point. Actually, we're taking him to go see Ghostbusters Frozen Empire this weekend. So it won't be this weekend, but maybe in the future. Maybe the next time we have a movie night where we stay in, I'll show him this. I got to call it out. You and I both have the Criterion version. Absolutely beautiful. The cover art, Zach, I didn't realize it, by comic book artist Bill Sinkwasi. You would recognize his art. He did this famous Elektra comic way back in the 80s. But it's a great Blu-ray set, and it actually has the Raymond Burr version on it, but it's hidden in the supplemental material, not on like the main one. So that, we didn't accidentally watch the wrong one or anything, but it's nice. It actually has that version, Godzilla King of Monsters, which I think that's now how sort of people refer to that version of the film.
Is it
but
all
it's
on
great...
the same disc? Is it all
it's
on
on
the
same
same disc?
Which is funny because considering our discussion with Lee last week, about the watch list and talking about the old Anchor Bay DVDs, how we had to like sometimes flip them, not just for the widescreen versus the pan and scan, but like early DVDs we had to flip for the actual movie. I remember having to flip for fucking Dawn of the Dead, like not different versions, like actually fucking flip the damn thing. And now Blu-rays have like multiple versions of the film and all the extra material all on one disc. It's quite remarkable.
I mean, we're the last generation to remember that VHS tapes had 3 recording abilities: SP, LP, and SLP. And SLP obviously was 6 hours, LP was 4, and SP was 2. And the longer the recording capability, the less the quality was on the tape.
Yeah,
this is the complete opposite. Like they were able to do all that. I remember getting Austin Powers, the DVD New Line put out, and you had the widescreen on one side and the pan and scan on the other. And like, why is that even an option to have pan and scan? I don't like the black bars. It's weird. Anyways.
What was worse was when they actually made 2 different versions. Like, remember the old VHS Star Wars? They'd come out with a full screen version and but they're separate,
Separate
and then
tapes.
If someone actually bought you the wrong one, you're like, God damn it, because I've been widescreen my whole entire life, baby.
Same. I mean, I remember getting that, and like you have to return it. Returns are so much easier now. And then they have to inspect it at Suncoast. They're like, well, it looks like you tried to open up the box. I'm like, I didn't try to open it up. The 20th Century Fox sticker's still on the tape.
Just swap, motherfucker. Just swap.
Uncut. Just swap. Anyways, yeah. So I love that. I do want to watch the Raymond Burr version, Perry Mason version. It's funny. Like you got to have a white guy in there, white savior, and I do dig the new ones. I think Diallo and I were having this discussion when we were at WonderCon a few weeks back. I really love the Kong Skull Island movie. I thought that movie was really well done. Actually, out of all of the new ones, I think that's the best one.
Agreed. That's my favorite out of all the new stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they're good. I thought that Monarch show really missed the beat. I thought the first few episodes were really solid, and then slowly we're like, man, they're spending a really long time on this character development and not enough. And it was cliche. Like he had the monster scene at the end of the episode, every single episode.
Okay.
It's just getting a little old for me. I didn't even finish the series, unfortunately. As much as I love Kurt Russell, it's just one of those things where I'm like, yep, this isn't doing it for me. I'm not excited about the new Kong Godzilla movie, but I still want to see it. Because I think it's cool that we still have monster movies in 2024.
Yeah, I think that kind of sums up my feeling on it as well. I didn't love the Gareth Edwards Godzilla movie. I didn't love the next one that came out. I loved Skull Island. That I actually loved. But I want to go see it just to support it. But at the same time, I'm not in love with these. Now, that being said, I am chomping at the bit for Godzilla -1. It's not out yet on Blu-ray. I didn't get a chance to see it in the theater.
Same.
But I've heard nothing but amazing things about it. So I'm actually more excited about that than I am about the Godzilla King Kong movie. But
I know Robert Ortiz is a huge Godzilla fan, so he's got all the toys and all the props and such, and which is really radical. So Robert, I hope we can do your movie justice with our breakdown, and thank you again for bringing it to Podcasting After Dark.
Yeah, buddy, really appreciate it, and again, I love this movie. So this was a real treat for me, and I hadn't seen it since this version. Well, even the Raymond Burr version since the AFI Silver. So it was great watching it.
That's cool, man.
I watched it with Myra, and she loved it too. And it was perfect because I got to give Robert a shout out for this, but he picked this movie, I think specifically because we're doing it as I came back from my trip to Japan. And I got to say, man, the love for Godzilla over there is obvious. that was going to be the case, but there's this one awesome like hotel in, I think, Shibuya, that has Godzilla's head, like coming over the hotel, and it's like to scale and everything like that, and it shoots breath out and all that kind of stuff. It's really
rad.
Cool. I do want to kind of get into a little bit of a backstory on the importance of this film. And I'm not going to get into like a huge history lesson here, but before we start talking about the cast and crew, I just do want to set the tone. So this movie came out in 1954. America, the U.S. occupied Japan until 1952, post World War II. And while they were cool with while they being the U.S. was cool with, the freedom of speech and everything, one thing that was not sort of permitted was discussion about the atomic bomb, what happened to it, all that kind of like what happened to Hiroshima, Nagasaki and everything, that like the knowledge wasn't openly available. Once the U.S. occupation left in 52, 2 movies were made specifically about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and then Godzilla came out. So this was all part of this like sort of delayed catharsis for the nation to actually like deal with the trauma that they went through, not just losing the war, and not just being occupied, but being bombed, being, like just 2 cities annihilated. There's even a line in this movie about one of the characters, Momoko, talks about, barely surviving Nagasaki and everything. And you got to remember, like, all of that was 10 years prior. So it's still fresh in their heads and their memories. And so this movie, Godzilla, yes, the 2 other movies about Hiroshima and Nagasaki were very important to the people, but this one I think it held a special place because I'm no historian, but my understanding is it allowed people to feel things, allowed people to address these feelings without having to actually look at the horrors of an atomic bomb. Like they could defer it to Godzilla, they could defer it, but they could still deal with the trauma. It was a way to help the nation to deal with the trauma.
Yeah, it reminds me, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know they are out there. In modern day settings of movies that come out, that it's more of a metaphor for something that happened to us in the past, whether it be Vietnam, whether it be the Cold War, in a safer, like a more, less obvious way to handle the trauma. So yeah, I totally get that, understand that. But clearly this made an impact, and we're still talking about it to this day.
Yeah,
I'd rather see this 10 times more than Oppenheimer any day, though, by the way.
Yeah, and this also kicked off an entire genre of films. The giant, rubber monster movie, the kaiju films. This is the first. This kicked it all off. So, let's talk about, the company Toho. They put this out. They also put out Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. And that kind of leads us into the director, who Zach will mention in a second. But he was also best friends with Akira Kurosawa. They both got their start as assistant directors under another famous Japanese director that I'm forgetting right now. But they both got their starts as like assistant directors under them. And then, Akira Kurosawa and... Zach, I'm forgetting this.
Ishirô Honda.
Ishirô Honda. Their careers kind of went up at the same time, but Ishirô Honda, he went the giant monster route, but Akira Kurosawa, world-renowned, legendary director Akira Kurosawa, cherished this man here, and I think that Ishirô Honda should be up there with Akira Kurosawa as far as like cinema greats.
Yeah, his filmography, as far as a director is concerned, it's a who's who of Godzilla movies, from Destroy All Monsters to
Mothra to Rodan.
Mothra, Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. Like, he's got a laundry list of kaiju films that he did, and 79 movies to his directorial credit.
And speaking of, the new Godzilla versus King Kong or whatever, he is the director of King Kong versus Godzilla in 1963.
Yeah, so there you go. Boom. Boom.
So yeah, legendary director here. And again, it shouldn't be understated. This movie kicked off an entire genre that is still going strong today.
Well, so I was just going to point out really quickly, there's several writers for this. There's a story, novel, and then Ishirô and Takeo Murata co-wrote this, I suppose, together. I think he also was credited, Takeo was credited with several Godzilla movies as well. So, and actually gets a credit on the new Monarch show, and it gets credited as the original creator of Godzilla -1. So
I guess he's just credited as creating Godzilla, essentially.
Yeah, which is, definitely notable. I want to point out, as far as the cast is concerned, just the top four. I think it's worth noting. I'll start with Momoko Kôchi, who plays Emiko Yamane in the film. She has been in a ton of Godzilla movies. Shocker! And so has Akira Takarada, who plays Hidito Ogata.
Yeah.
And he's credited with almost the same amount of Godzilla movies as well. Then there is my favorite character in the movie, Dr. Daisuke Shirazawa, played by Akihiko Hirata. Equally, again, has been in just a ton of films. I believe 170 credits as an actor, which is impressive. And then lastly, Takashi Shimura. He plays Kyohei Yamin. He also has quite a few credits as an actor. Not as many kaiju films, but 331 credits as an actor.
Holy shit.
So I thought Eric Roberts was the most busiest actor in the biz, but clearly Takahashi takes the cake.
Yeah, that's wow, 300 plus. Yeah, he's great in this movie. Honestly, the entire cast is great. I enjoy everybody in this movie. I also enjoy the score. Composer is Akira Ifukube. This soundtrack is like, this score is so iconic. It's reused in Godzilla -1, so he gets a credit for that, even though, he passed away in 2006. I believe it also gets a credit in Ready Player One. They probably use some of it in there as well, but
that's cool.
He also worked on Godzilla and Mothra in 1992, Mechagodzilla 2 in 93. I mean, he's worked on a bunch of other kaiju films as well, but other things, other movies as well that I never even heard of, But his score, that it's so good, man. It's so good. And I'm not sure, who exactly did the sound design for this film. But that Godzilla roar also is iconic at this point, and it's often imitated, never duplicated.
Absolutely, that's the best way to put it. This movie opens iconically, and you're like, this is where it all started, yo.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So, Zach, are you ready? Are you ready to roar?
Godzilla, yeah. I mean, sure.
We're workshopping something. Something a bit may come out later on in this episode, but I feel like we're workshopping something there.
Trying, folks. Trying our darndest for Robzilla. Row! There goes Florida. It is Robzilla.
Perfect.
Godzilla, king of the monsters, alive, surging up from the depths of the sea on a tidal wave of terror to wreak vengeance on mankind.
Godzilla, king of the monsters, it's alive.
A gigantic beast,
stalking the earth, crushing all before it.
in a cyclonic cavalcade of electrifying horror.
Raging through the streets on a rampage of total destruction.
Godzilla, king of the monsters,
Incredible titan of terror.
wiping out a city of 6 million in a holocaust of flame.
Jet flames cannot destroy it.
Bombs cannot kill it.
All modern modern weapons failed.
Is this the end of our civilization?
Can the scientists of the world find a way to stop this creature?
For the answer, see Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
You may wish to deny it, but your eyes tell you it's true.
A tale to stun the mind.
More fantastic than any ever written by Jules Verne.
More terrifying than any ever shown on the screen.
Awesome.
Incredible.
Unbelievable.
A story beyond your wildest dreams.
Dynamic violence.
Savage action.
Spectacular thrills.
Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Fantastic beyond comprehension.
Gripping beyond compare.
Astounding beyond belief.
The mightiest monster of them all.
See Godzilla,
King of the Monsters.
Sorry, I can't do it anymore.
No one can do it because it's not actually a scream. It's like he ran some sort of comb or something across a guitar string or something like that. Like it's not actually a scream an animal has ever done. So I don't blame you for not being able to imitate Godzilla's yell.
Just blame me.
I blame you for everything.
I blame you for everything.
The movie opens with "Made with the support of the Japan Coast Guard." Then we get the awesome Toho Company logo and a slow, steady drum beat before the Godzilla title card shoots up from the bottom of the screen. We hear the now iconic Godzilla roar as the opening credits roll. I'll probably insert it right there.
No, you don't want to keep mine in?
No, fuck you, no, it's good. I'll keep both in. You're like, I just blew out my vocal cords. You want to keep mine in, please?
This is what it sounds like when you rub something against a comb.
The awesome main theme song starts playing and builds momentum until director Ishirô Honda's name comes on the screen. The music and credits fade into a scene of men on a shipping vessel out at sea. We later find out this is the Iko Maru of the South Seas Shipping Company. All of a sudden, there's an explosion in the distance, and the men run to the railing to look at it. They see the water start bubbling, then a flash of light, and all the men cover their eyes and scream. Another flash of light and wind, and we see the ship is on fire and sinking. And by the way, Zach, we got to talk about the models. I love the models.
I mean, look, you got to transport back, and I prefaced this with Bodhi. I said, you got to transport yourself back to 1954, not 2024, when this was all a big deal. None of this seemed silly at the time, except for one moment in this movie, maybe two. And, you just got a suspension of disbelief. So this capitalized, or this started probably the whole model, play with your model toys craze in the bathtubs. Francis would not be playing with his battleships in Pee-wee's Big Adventure in his giant bathtub if Godzilla had never happened.
Good call, buddy. Good call. And by the way, I used to play with my G.I. Joes in the bathtub because I used to love the fact that the boats actually floated. Like, I know it's like, and of course they do. Like that makes sense. But at the same time, as a kid, I was like, oh my God, they actually put in the effort to make these things float.
Did you have the Fisher-Price people? Like the little, yeah. And they had the science fiction guys too, but they had I had the deep sea diver, and he came with his tank and it came with like a octopus.
Yep.
And
I had that
treasure. Yeah. I did all that.
I love water-based toys, which is why I always loved the Cobra Eel. So I love snow-based and water-based toys, like meaning like characters that go in the water or go in the snow.
And now freebase.
There you go. Inside the ship, we see two radio operators send out a Morse code SOS, and it's picked up back on the Japanese mainland.
Do you know what SOS stands for, by the way?
I do not, and I actually thought that, like, when I was typing this, I was like, I wonder what it stands for, and then I kind of just moved past it. What does it stand for?
So I was having a debate with a friend who was visiting us. So it can stand for two things, because she said, it's save our ships. I go, no, it's save our souls. And then we asked Google, and Google said it stands for save our souls and or save our ships.
Interesting. I never knew that. Wow.
Now you know. And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe. Water floods the room and the two operators die as the flaming vessel sinks into the sea. Now, this opening scene is kind of inspired another bit of history. So I believe it was 1952 or 53 that the first H-bomb tests went off, I believe on Bikini Atoll. And when they tested the first H-bomb, a Japanese fishing vessel didn't know that this was going to happen and was kind of in the blast radius. It didn't get completely like obliterated, but they got fucked up, and I think a couple of them died from obviously the radiation that came, with all of that. So that concept was sort of the inspiration for this movie. The guy who came up with the story and everything, he was like, what if, and then he just kind of went, the next step is, what if that atom bomb or the H-bomb thing brought something to the surface, being Godzilla. So that's also, too, why in this movie the H-bomb is mentioned so much, is because at the time it was only like a year and a half old.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's like doing a Vietnam movie right after Vietnam, or,
yeah,
we did, or a 9/11. We did do 9/11 movies right after 9/11. So and you're like, that's really soon.
Well, but it's also a way for us to heal. And then you see how, them not being able to make this movie for 10 years after, it was kind of like postponing their healing and everything. And I believe in the power of film. It can be films can teach, films can heal, and films can also entertain.
Yeah. Yeah. And or you can be making real life scary movies while real life scary stuff's going on, a la the A24 movie, that's,
Civil War that's coming out.
Civil War, yeah, because we're still in the middle of one. So.
Pretty much, yeah. I do want to see that film, though. It looks amazing.
I do, too. I hope it has the ending I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Cut to Hideto Agata, and I'll just probably refer to him as Agata moving forward, answering the phone. This is kind of interesting. He says, South Seas Salvage. I actually had to rewind it, because I was like, so he says salvage, but he works for South Seas Shipping. But I guess that's just another division of South Seas Shipping.
Yeah.
He says his girlfriend, Amiko, who's also the daughter of Professor Dr. Yamane, walks over and stands next to him. Probably make sure he isn't talking to some hoe. Ogata says he'll be right there and hangs up the phone. Amiko asks if there's been an accident. He says an SOS from one of our boats. I have to go to the Coast Guard office. He looks down at 2 tickets to a concert and says, I'm sorry I can't go, but you can make it if you hurry, and hands them to her. She says it's disappointing, but work is work. Ogata grabs his sailor's cap, and they rush out the door.
Work is work.
It's of the time. Amiko's kind of the time,
Yeah, it's 1954.
Yeah. At the Coast Guard office, we see men frantically trying to figure out what's going on while a radio voice overplays. The Iko Maru, a 75-ton freighter belonging to the South Sea Shipping, lost contact on August 13th at 900 hours. Latitude 24 degrees north, longitude 141 degrees east. Cause of loss of communication unknown. Patrol vessels in regions 3 and 4 stand by to deploy. We see a door open and a bunch of civilians flood the office looking for answers. Ogata is with them. An old man asks one of the officers what's happening, and the man tells them, it was like when the Myeon-sho volcano erupted. We received an SOS, then suddenly the connection went dead. Just then, another officer says one of the rescue ships is approaching the area and will be sure to find something. We cut to the rescue ship shining its lights across the surface of the ocean. Just then, the water starts to bubble and the ship explodes, then sinks.
Boom!
Dude, this movie gets like right to this stuff.
Yeah, they're not messing around.
Now, I will say that my favorite build-up directors of all time is Roland Emmerich. I think Independence Day, even the shitty American Godzilla movie that we don't love, has a great build-up. He always does a great first 30 minutes of the movie,
It's not that they're bad. It's just he does the same thing with all his movies. The writing is just kind of weak. I will say The Day After Tomorrow, if that's, I think, an often overlooked film of his, is really good. Did he direct that? I don't know if he directed that actually. Moonfall was god awful trash. That was the last one he did. Like it is. Yeah, he did direct The Day After Tomorrow. Or no. I think he directed just he's credited as directing the deleted scenes of The Day After Tomorrow. Like he's hit or miss as a director. His action sequences are amazing. It's just the writing is super weak. Yeah. This doesn't have weak writing. This has really solid writing.
Yeah, agreed.
Like to the point where this has such solid writing, the ending, that's what makes the ending of this movie like stand the test of time.
Yeah, and the movie in general. But yes, I agree with you.
You better agree with me. Otherwise, we're going to have a different kind of podcast. Robert's like, no, disagree. What happens when the two best buddies don't agree? No,
I'm trying to rack my brain on the last time we disagreed on a movie, but we're pretty simpatico in a lot of things.
Que simpatico. Yes.
Back in the Coast Guard office, people are on the phone relaying messages that both ships went down in the same area. Now more civilians are there frantically asking about their relatives aboard the boats. One of the officers tells them there's a helicopter and 2 more ships heading to the scene now, but they won't know anything about survivors until they report back. Cut to 3 survivors being brought onto a tiny fishing boat. One of the South Seas shipping men is able to talk and tells the fisherman, "I'm telling you, the sea just exploded." He then passes out. Back in the Coast Guard's office, an officer is telling the family members the 3 survivors were rescued by a fishing boat and are being taken to Odo Island. We are dispatching a patrol boat to get them. One lady asks which ship they are from, but the officer doesn't know. He says they're still investigating. They'll release the names soon. An older gentleman says, "Thank goodness 3 survived. It will help them figure out what caused all this." Just then a man comes into the room and tells the officer that they have the names. Everyone goes running to the other room and they try to plow through the door. It's total chaos. Everyone eventually makes it in, and when they ask what's the news, another officer says, "This is incredible, utterly incredible. The fishing boat has met the same fate." We see men on the phones reporting the information to their editors as the scene fades into multiple newspaper headlines that read, "Naval mines? Undersea volcano?" Another one that says, "Ship sunk mysteriously at sea. No hope of survivors."
The pacing of this movie is really great. It just it doesn't hold up. It doesn't like really take a break if you think about it.
No, it never does. There's never really any boring scenes either. I do miss the trope, buddy. I do miss the old school trope of the newspaper spinning in and telling you the headline of what's happening. We don't see anything like that anymore. And I know it's because we don't get newspapers, but no one's even like tried to turn that trope into a modern trope and have like a laptop come spinning at you, you know?
Yeah, there's got to be a way to do that. I'm sure someone's tried it, but just showing it on a phone or something they show that where like tweets pop up or something in a movie, like a montage or something. It's not the same.
It's not the same. The old school newspaper, baby, is awesome.
Yeah.
Cut to the small fishing island of Odo, and people are sitting on the beach looking out into the sea, waiting for some sign of their fellow fishermen. Just then, a raft is spotted floating in, and everyone stands up. A few men swim out to bring the person in. One of the swimmers yells out that it's Masaji. They bring Masaji to the beach, and a man slaps him awake. You can see the actor flinch when he hits him, too. It's funny.
You're like, damn, he wasn't holding back.
I know. It's almost like the actor was like, what the fuck, man? Stop hitting me so hard. Masaji says, "It got us, and our boat, too." Then he passes out in the man's arms. The next day on Odo Island, we see a whole bunch of fishing boats coming back to the beach with empty nets. They couldn't catch a fish, not even small ones. One disgruntled fisherman says, "It's never been this bad." An old man on the beach says it must be Godzilla. A young lady says there's no such thing nowadays. The old man gets angry and says back to her, "If you ridicule our traditions, I'll feed you stupid cows to Godzilla."
Chauvinistic men.
And that guy has an amazing, perpetual scowl on his face.
Yeah, he does.
Just then, a Coast Guard helicopter flies overhead, breaking the tension in the crowd. It lands, and officers and a reporter get out. The reporter interviews Masaji. The lone survivor says, "There's definitely some living thing going crazy down there. That's why we can't catch a thing." The reporter says, "But a creature that big?" Masaji cuts him off and yells, "That's why I didn't want to say anything. I'm telling you the truth and nobody believes me." He tells his brother, Shinkichi, they are leaving with their cows and not the ladies down on the beach.
Of course not. Yeah, because, what's more valuable? And I was also, too, I was like, oh, wait, yeah, they did have helicopters back then. What year is this?
54. This is post-World War II. We have a lot of stuff. Is this before the Korean War, though?
You really...
We are not history majors here, guys and girls. But yeah, I am curious, Zach, when did the Korean War actually start?
1950 to 1953.
No shit. Okay. Wow. So this is actually just after the Korean War as well.
Yeah. I mean, I knew that. I mean, I didn't.
But before this is all before Vietnam.
Historians? Yeah. What do I look like? An historian?
Godzilla?
Godzilla, Robzilla. Making us fact check, learn dates and such.
I guess learn things. God damn it, Rob. Godzilla, damn it, Robzilla.
Fran Turkington. What?
That night, the Ordo Island villagers put on a ceremony at a temple to appease Godzilla. The old man from on the beach is telling the reporter about Godzilla. A giant, terrifying monster. Once it eats all the fish in the sea, it'll come ashore and eat the people. In the old days, if the catch was poor for a long time, we'd sacrifice a young girl, send her drifting out into the middle of the ocean. This dance is all that's left of the exorcism ritual.
You gotta love traditions when innocent people are flailed alive.
Fucking Jesus Christ.
This is the problem I have with religion, traditions, and all that stuff.
Yeah. It's us trying to control what is just pure chaos. That's all I was talking to someone.
That's right. I was talking to someone the other day, and they were saying that I guess organized religion with like young people is down across the country, at least here in the United States. I wonder why. And I'm like, that's fantastic. And the guy was like, is it? Is it really? And I go, well, I guess it depends on how you look at it, your perspective, And he's like, well, some might say that's not a good thing. And I go, this is true. Some might say it is. Then that's where we're at a crossroads. And I guess we're done talking about that now, aren't we?
Yep.
And we were.
Hail Satan.
Yep. And I hammered his hands into a cross and I left him in the desert to die.
Left him on the beach like Cyborg.
Yes. And he came back and he said, Mashidoshi-se, I must forgive you.
As the ritual plays out, we see the wind starting to pick up on the island. On the beach below, the waves crash against the fishing boats, smashing them to splinters. A giant storm is approaching, or maybe something else entirely.
Did you notice when the winds were blowing, it was going... And then suddenly the Scorpion song started playing. Change. Corey was like, where's he going with this?
Dude, well, I remember, that song was on the air so much growing up as a kid, dude.
You remember when metal bands would do that one ballad and suddenly they were huge for that one ballad?
Yep. And then, that was the only ballad they have. Everything else was like rock and roll. But that was, they had to have that one ballad to get that radio play,
Ozzy Osbourne. Do you remember what Ozzy Osbourne's was?
Mama, I'm coming home. Actually, I actually love that fucking song.
I do too.
I think it's a great song. Yeah,
it is a great song. But they all had that one ballad. Queensryche had Silent Stupidity.
Yeah, Silent Lucidity. And that's the thing. Like, all people ever know about Queensryche is Silent Lucidity, but they were fucking a baller. Like, they had other great fucking songs too.
Jet City Woman.
But like, Silent Lucidity kind of is the main thing that got. Once that landed, that's all the radio station would ever fucking play.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I like Silent Lucidity, but like they have other great fucking songs too.
Me too. Extreme had More Than Words, you know, that was their big.
Yep, bro, all of them, bro. I know them all.
And, you know, all these songs are reminding me that if anyone's interested, we have a show called 80s Kids Unite. It airs once a month. It's with the Night Boys. It's a rotating group of guys, the Night Boys. It's me, Corey, Dustin from $2, Diallo from TV Obscura, Paul London from Territory Marks. Some of us join, some of us don't join, depends on the scheduling, but we do topics based on Patreon suggestions. So if you sign up to one of our Patreons, patreon.com/podcastingafterdark or patreon.com/$2 late fee, you can make a suggestion that we will bring to the show. For example, we did Live Aid. That's our most recent one. I think that just dropped.
That'll be dropping after this.
Okay, it'll be dropping after this. The month before was favorite martial art moves
that we wish we could do. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the one before that was.
It was Garbage Pail Kids. It was just all Garbage Pail Kids stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
it's fun.
So,
it's all. I mean, they're all over the place, you know. So
all over the place.
They're great, but they all have to be 80s based, and then the suggestions come from patrons.
So if you want to suggest 80s metal ballads, that would be a wonderful suggestion. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great suggestion. And
I guess I should join Patreon and suggest that.
You should.
No.
Or
Listeners,
since I'm a $2 late fee patron, I can just go and suggest it over there.
You could. And there's a caveat. You got to be signed up for more than just, like a cup of coffee, because we don't want you to sign up, suggest it, and then split. Come on, Support the shows. Give us a like, give us a follow, give us all those good things.
Yeah, exactly. Hey everybody, Corey here. I just want to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Hello, and welcome to Vampire. Vampire is a wildly ambitious, independent horror comedy film.
It is fun, sexy, thrilling, and unpredictable from start to finish.
On the surface, Vampire is a slasher flick set in the 90s.
References Bambi, but it's not just Bambi, but horror. It's its own thing, and it has a real story to tell.
Vampire is a story that I wrote to encapsulate my own experience growing up in the wilds of Alaska, seeing humankind interact with nature.
So to me, Vampire is just like a fantastic horror comedy, just like a classic kind of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, early Scream era.
It's also a gore fest that will make you wonder if we took the actors back there and really mauled them like that.
It is going to be so wildly entertaining.
It's visceral, it's energetic, it's emotional, it's popcorn, it's candy. It feels like watching a movie. It's a movie.
And now, back to the show. Back on Odo Island.
Back on Odo.
Inside one of the houses, we see Shinkichi and Masaji and their mother being woken up by the sound of rain and wind hitting the roof. The whole house starts shaking and swaying, and Shinjiki runs outside to see what's happening. Masaji chases after Shinjiki, but doesn't make it outside. He hears Shinjiki scream, "Brother!" Then he looks up into the sky in horror and runs back to their mother. The whole house falls on top of them as Shinjiki yells for them from outside in the rain. This causes other villagers to run to his aid just in time to witness the tragedy. Now, I do kind of feel bad for Masaji because he survived the boat attack. He survives, floating on the raft. He's finally home, and he gets crushed by, I guess, essentially Godzilla's foot.
Yeah, what a way to go out.
What a way. Thanks to some beautiful miniatures, we see Odo Island being hit by the full brunt of the storm. The houses closest to the water are obliterated by huge tidal waves. We also see that the Coast Guard helicopter is destroyed too. Man, we could talk about it at any point in time, and I'll say it multiple times, but I miss miniature work so much. I miss it. It's all CGI nowadays. I miss miniatures.
It's funny you say that because, and I will speak more to it when we record Wrap Up After Dark, which is a Patreon exclusive series. I keep pitching Patreon in this whole episode.
Papa needs a new pair of shoes, baby.
Yeah, I gotta recoup some funds, yo. I went to Miniature World in Vancouver Island in the city of Victoria. And it is an amazing little museum of all these miniatures. And I actually sent Corey some footage of the reenactment of the Lady in the Lake from Excalibur, the hand coming out. And it's, they're like tiny little miniatures. They reenacted certain wars and fairy tale stories. It's really, really cool place. Exceeded our expectations.
You should have snuck in a little Storm Shadow figure, put it by the Lady in the Lake.
I should have. These were all behind glass, but
okay.
It was so cool to see that. Yeah, so I'll talk more about it on Wrap Up After Dark, or I may post some of them on my personal Instagram page as well. But man, it was super fun, and yeah, it got me. I was telling Bodhi, I'm like, miniatures are so cool. I wish I had something like that when I was a kid.
Yeah, my grandpa, my mom's dad, he had a train set, not the big ones, but the smaller ones, and like a whole portion of his basement was like a big portion, but a whole portion of it was an entire like little city with trains and everything. Everything was to scale. And, I loved it. I adored it as a kid. And it's because of that I think grew up being such a scale whore. Like I had a hard time as a kid playing with G.I. Joes and Transformers together. And the reason I liked like Warhammer 40,000 so much is because everything was to scale. Like everything was perfect to scale. So I've always, I appreciate miniatures. I appreciate models, and I appreciate like to scale.
Me too.
The next day, we see a bus with a banner on the side that reads Odo Island Disaster Petition Group, driving up to what looks like a courthouse or like sort of a federal building of some kind.
Right, yeah.
Inside, we see reporters covering the proceedings. A representative from Odo Island reports 17 houses destroyed and 9 people dead, along with 12 cows and 8 pigs. There's an old school wipe indicating a time jump, and now Shinjiki is testifying to what he witnessed as well. He says, "It's the truth. It was hard to see in the dark, but it was definitely alive." Now the reporter that was interviewing Masagi is testifying. Oh, by the way, I'll start mentioning him by name later because I don't actually find out his name until later. But anyways, it's the same reporter. Anytime I mention a reporter, it's the same guy throughout the entire movie, except for that one tower where they all get killed. That's not him.
No, it's actually Guy Smiley from the Muppets.
I used to love Guy Smiley, dude.
Me too. I always wanted a figure of him.
Yeah, me too. Guy Smiley, dude. God, good call. I forgot about that name. I was a big Muppets kid too, growing up as a kid. All right, so now the reporter that was interviewing Masagi is testifying. He goes, "I know it defies common sense, but the more I think about it, the more I'm convinced this wasn't caused by a typhoon. The damages to the houses and the helicopter suggest they were crushed from above." As the reporter leaves the witness stand, paleontologist Professor Yamane is called to testify. He's Amiko's father. I mentioned that earlier. The professor says, "I'm a bit embarrassed to be testifying before I've had a chance to inspect the disaster scene. But as you are all aware, footprints thought to belong to a snowman have been discovered in the Himalayas, and that mystery has yet to be solved. Furthermore, there are sealed cavities deep in the ocean. We can't imagine what secrets they conceal. I believe we must form an emergency research team to investigate the matter." Everyone cheers and the scene fades out. Zach, this movie's very tight, and I don't have a lot of problems with it. But this little bit of dialogue where he's like, "As you know, a snowman's footprints were found," and he's referring to like a Yeti, not a snowman that you built like Frosty, but a Yeti. And I'm like, what did that little bit of dialogue have to do with anything else?
I mean, I'll only world build and say that they had intended to make a Yeti movie after this.
My thought is that he's just trying to illustrate that the world is a strange place, and weird shit can happen, I guess.
True.
But yeah, I'm with you. Maybe they were trying to actually lay the groundwork for something, and that just reminds me of Horror Express, finding the body of the Yeti, and that's
the Yeti.
Yeah. So maybe Horror Express is actually a pseudo sequel to this.
I'm gonna say yes.
And I'm going to agree with you because I suggested it.
Yeah, you are. And then we're going to take full credit for when that actually comes to fruition.
when they actually say, "Oh, they actually are in the same world," like when Ridley Scott said that Blade Runner and Alien are the same universe.
Right, and then Rob is going to say, "Wait a minute, I produced this episode, and so I should get credit too." So yeah, you do get credit, Rob.
Rob, you get EP credit. Cut to a group of people cheering and waving to a research vessel bound for Odo Island. One of the onlookers is a young man with an eye patch under his sunglasses. We come to find out that later that his name is Serizawa,
a.k.a. Major Blood.
There it is. There's the bit. There it is. This is kind of cool. Everyone on the pier is holding a ribbon that someone else on the ship is holding on to the other end of. I always thought that was kind of neat. On the research vessel, we see Professor Yumane and his daughter Amiko, as well as Shinjiki and Ogata. The scene fades to sometime later aboard the research vessel. Ogata is talking to Amiko. He says that he was surprised Serizawa came to see them off. He rarely leaves his lab. Perhaps it was a final farewell. Amiko asks what he means by that. Ogata surveys the ocean with a pair of giant mounted binoculars and says, "Of course we'll avoid dangerous waters, but anything could happen." He walks away and Amiko kind of looks cautiously over the edge down to the sea below. It's like, thanks, asshole, for putting that thought in my head.
Yeah, thanks a lot. You know, last time I was on a boat, I got so seasick, I threw up everywhere. You'll be okay, though. Thanks.
Thanks. And you are, of course, speaking from experience because you get motion sickness on a boat, right?
Yep. But I will say I would be taking patches if I was getting on these boats. There's a prescription patch you can put behind your ear, which I did take on my trip. The only side effects could possibly be dizziness and vomiting. True story, which is really funny.
Which is what it's supposed to prevent, right?
Right. Yeah, but what it did cause was dry mouth, a little bit of a sore throat, and a blurred vision and brightness, so I had to wear sunglasses.
Jesus Christ, man.
But it was great. I was totally fine. I didn't get motion sick once.
Yeah, you're like, well, I'm not vomiting, so I'll take everything else over that.
True story, man.
Jesus Christ.
Corey's like, I get dry mouth all the time.
Yeah, from the weed, baby. The only time I get motion sickness is if I'm in the passenger seat or the back seat of the car and I'm reading something. Like I can't be looking down and reading something while otherwise I'm fine. Fine on airplanes, fine on boats, knock on wood, fine on everything else.
Good for you.
You're like, brag.
So happy for you. I literally was on a boat once in Mexico and I got sick on it and I went in the bathroom. 45-minute boat ride and never left the bathroom, was vomiting the entire time. People are pounding on the door. They're like, "We're going to call the captain." I go, "I'm not coming out of here." And then finally the boat docked. I came out and they're like, "Oh, you really were sick." I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah, because you're like 10 pounds lighter and you're probably pale and emaciated.
I was white as the deck and all I did was have my head, the whole day was ruined.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's no joke for you, dude.
Nope.
I mean, making fun aside, I do feel bad for you for that.
You can make fun. I can take it.
I
can take it just like they took Godzilla's flame.
and just like Batman can take it in Dark Knight Rises or whatever.
Right. I can take it.
On Odo Island, the professor and his men survey the damage. We see them measuring what looks to be a giant footprint, as well as using their Geiger counters to measure the radiation levels. The drinking water seems to be contaminated. The men are baffled by the fact that the radiation levels seem to be contained to one side of the island, where the damage took place, when the entire island would be radioactive if it was fallout. The scientists check the giant footprint the professor is measuring with their Geiger counter, and it's radioactive as well. They tell the villagers to stay back. It's too dangerous. The professor spots something in the footprint and picks it up. It's a trilobite, a marine arthropod thought long extinct. He shows it to Amiko, and she takes note of it. One of the scientists tells the professor he shouldn't handle it with bare hands. He puts the trilobite in the box that Amiko is holding, so she can get cancer too, and the reporter asks what it is. Professor Yumane says it's an amazing discovery. Then he goes back to picking up more things out of the footprint with his bare hands.
Yeah, because why not? We're all going to die someday.
Yeah. It's
like, who cares?
I thought that was funny, and they don't make him like a bumbling professor, like a bumbling character. I just thought it was like, why this scene? Like, why was he such a bonehead here?
Show how cool he is.
He's like, fuck your radiation. I got this.
I can take it. I'm going to die later anyways.
Not before I do 200 more movies, though.
Right, exactly.
Just then, someone sounds the alarm and everyone goes running to the mountain. One of the villagers says that Godzilla is on the other side. We see Professor Yumaine at the peak of the mountain pointing out to the valley. He's pretty spry for an old man. He beat everyone else up there. He says to the rest of them, Ogata, Mika, Shinjuku, and the reporter, I saw it, a creature from the Jurassic era. Just then, Godzilla's head appears over a ridge, and everyone goes running back down the mountain in terror. Zach, is this the part that you guys laughed at?
No.
Oh,
it's coming up.
This is the part that I thought was funny because there's a couple shots. I mean, Godzilla looks amazing this entire movie, but there's a couple shots where he kind of has his oogly eyeballs, and they kind of remind me of the Bumble from the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You know, like just his eyeballs are kind of going everywhere, and
Actually,
I'm just like,
yeah.
I laughed at this scene. I was like, okay, and I get it. It's the time, yada yada yada. You don't have to explain things to me, but it was still kind of silly, and I laughed a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna roll back my original comment. This was the scene that Bodhi laughed out loud at because we both were like, when we first see Godzilla, he's gonna be sick, and then we're like, I think he is sick. He's got googly eye sickness. It is silly because there are so many other shots throughout this movie where you see that like a profile or a shadow of Godzilla.
And he's menacing.
So menacing. This is like, hey, who wants to sit on my lap?
And it's our first time seeing him. I'm like, oh man,
dude.
But I mean, it's kind of cool. Like they don't keep them hidden for very long. Like boom, I think we're only like, maybe 15 minutes into the movie.
Right.
And I mean, this movie's like an hour and 36 minutes. It's very fast paced. It's very streamlined, but like we're 15 minutes in and he just literally just pops up and he's like, hey guys, I'm Godzilla and I'm right here.
Hey, who wants the party?
So everyone's running back down the mountain. The titular beast lets out his iconic roar, and Amiko falls to the ground and screams. Ogata picks her up, and they hide in a ditch until Godzilla leaves. Everyone regains their confidence and runs back up to the top of the mountain. When they look down, they see the trail Godzilla left on the beach as he went back into the ocean. I like that shot. I like seeing his footprints in the sand and the tail behind it. I think that looked amazing.
Yeah. Steven Spielberg learned from that. Just less is more.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I'm not going to try to go back and, rewrite this movie, but if you only concentrate on their reaction and you don't actually see Godzilla and then the next thing you actually see are those footprints, I think that would have been built up like more suspense, type of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
but it gets a pass because of the time when it came out.
Exactly. And this started the whole genre. So this genre is going to get streamlined and better as it goes along, but this started the whole damn thing.
Right.
Fade into the next scene, and Professor Yumaine is giving a presentation on dinosaurs in the Jurassic period to a panel of government officials. It's believed that during the following geological period, the Cretaceous period, a rare intermediate organism was evolving from a marine reptile into a terrestrial animal. He shows a side of Godzilla from Odo Island. Another silly shot because it's the same sort of shot.
Right.
The professor continues, following Odo Island tradition, I propose for the time being that we call this creature Godzilla. He tells the room that it's estimated that the creature stands approximately 165 feet tall. Why such a creature would appear in our territorial waters is the next question. It was probably hidden away in a deep-sea cave, providing for its own survival and perhaps for others like it. However, repeated underwater H-bomb tests have completely destroyed its natural habitat. To put it simply, hydrogen bomb testing has driven it from its sanctuary. Everyone in the room talks amongst each other. The professor says that there is physical evidence to support this theory. And I like this. I like how they kind of lay everything out for you, the viewer, here.
Right.
First, the trilobite found in Godzilla's footprint. He shows them the sample in a jar and tells them that the trilobite went extinct 2 million years ago. The second piece of evidence is sand recovered from the trilobite's shell. There's no doubt that this sand is from one of the Jurassic-era strata. Someone in the room interrupts the professor and asks how he knows H-bombs are to blame. The professor says because of the high readings of radiation, the Geiger counter took off the sand that fell off Godzilla's body. The professor ends his presentation by saying, this physical evidence allows us to conclude that Godzilla is emitting high levels of H-bomb radiation. Everyone in the room again starts talking amongst themselves. The chairman calls for order. A man stands up and asks, given the grave repercussions of Professor Remain's report, we mustn't rush to make this public. Everyone claps, but a woman yells back that's exactly why it must be made public. And people clap for her too. The man explains his point. If Godzilla is a result of H-bomb testing, then it will strain their fragile diplomatic relations with other countries. The lady stands firm and yells back, the truth is the truth. The man's counterpoint is if they release the news to the public, their whole way of life, politics, economy, foreign relationships will be plunged into chaos. Things devolve into a screaming match between the two groups as reporters take pictures. Professor Yamain and his team just watch in silence. The scene fades out. Now, I think all of this is cool. I like when they kind of explain how they came to all these conclusions. And now, moving forward, we don't fucking have to worry about it. Like, we know why, and they actually gave us, like, their in-world proof as to how they came to these conclusions. I think that's neat.
Yeah, and it also shows how screwed up politics are with not wanting to reveal the truth to people because you don't want to strain relations with other countries. Case in point, our country knowing about coronavirus, or the president at the time knowing about it way before and not saying anything about it because he didn't want to screw up a deal with China. And that just got revealed today. So, woohoo!
Yay!
Could have avoided a lot of things if that was, we were smarter.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a good third of our population are morons.
Yes.
So, yeah, unfortunately.
But it's age old story, man. Like when people were like, "Oh, things are so messed up now," you're like, "No, things have always been messed up. We've always had deceit and lies and backstabbing, and it's right in our face in 1954 as well."
Yeah, and agendas, political agendas, other agendas, but even if you take this at face value, just say that this one guy that's talking, he's not malicious about it. He's like just stating sort of, I think his point is valid. He's like, look, we were World War II, the rest of the world viewed us as the enemy. We're trying to basically come back to the world stage as a different entity, and this may jeopardize that. The lady's point of view, I think, is also accurate, where it's like, the truth is the truth. Just tell the truth and accept whatever comes from it. And I think both sides are valid.
There's always validity on both sides, depending on how you look at it. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I get it. Totally get it. It's just, I'm watching this the whole time and I'm like, this took place in 54, yet, we
not
still
much
try
has
to cover
changed in,
Nope.
74 years? Or 70 years?
Right.
Oh, wait. Is this the 70th year anniversary?
Holy crow, it sure is.
Oh, awesome. Great job, Rob.
I mean, yeah, like we planned that the whole time.
Touche. So now we see more headlines, which we love. Disaster response center established. And and heavy losses at sea. Now we get 17 ships sunk to date.
17.
Amiko, Agata, and one of the other professors on her father's team, they're riding the train and talking about the presentation. Amiko says, "This is awful. Atomic tuna, radioactive fallout, and now this Godzilla to top it off. What if it shows up in Tokyo Bay?" The other professor playfully says, "It'll probably go straight for you first." And Amiko hits him, says, "I barely escaped the atomic bomb in Nagasaki, and now this." Ogata says he'll have to find a place to evacuate to. Amika tells him to find her one too. The other professor says he's had enough evacuating. And actually, this scene right here is super short, but like I kind of missed it earlier when I was a kid, when I watched this, but like watching it now, it's like, man, like in her lifetime, she just missed, getting obliterated by the atomic bomb in Nagasaki. And now the stress of, I mean, there's layers to this, man. Like the fear here,
Yeah, this movie is super deep.
It is, and it's really dark too.
It really is.
And not just because it's black and white, but there's going to be some dark shit later that we're going to call out.
Yeah, for sure.
Cut to the Disaster Response Center. It's packed with soldiers, officers, and civilians. People are complaining they can't make a living if they can't fish. Inside a large room, a man is reading off coordinates to where a frigate squadron will attack Godzilla with depth charges to a room of reporters and microphones. All other vessels in the vicinity should exercise caution. We see the frigate squadron in formation heading to their targets as upbeat naval-style music plays. They fire their depth charges and we see the water explode spectacularly. Cut to a TV news report saying, with nearly 20 ships sunk so far, so even that's a couple more even than last time we heard, right. Godzilla, monster of the century, has all of Japan in a panic. The frigate squadron has begun its depth charge attack. We see the TV that we're kind of watching is in Professor Remain's home, and he's watching it with his daughter Amiko. Ogata's there, and so is Shinjiki. Is he their adopted son now, by the way?
I'm assuming so.
Kind of is.
Yeah, sadly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, his mom and brother died. He's got nobody now.
Right.
The professor leaves the room in an angry huff, and Amiko goes to check on him. Shinjiki asks what's wrong. Ogata says, the professor's a zoologist. He doesn't want to see Godzilla killed. In the other room, Amiko finds her father sitting at his desk in the dark. She turns on the light, and he tells her to leave him alone for a while. As she closes the door, he tells her to please turn the light back off. You can only contemplate life in the dark. Literally, I don't know, 30 seconds, maybe 60-second scene. Absolutely not unnecessary. When he leaves the room, that's when the scene should have ended. Because she goes to check on him. He's like, leave me alone. She does. That's it. Like, you could have cut that.
Yeah, I agree.
I love. Now we're going to start trimming down that hour and 36 minutes to an hour and 30.
I mean, I'm not complaining. It's like, there's nothing wrong with trimming it.
Trim it, baby. Trim those hairs, baby. Trim those pubes, baby. Because that little scene right there was full bush. You don't need all that bush, baby. This isn't a 70s porno. Cut to a scene of the hustle and bustle of Tokyo at night. Then we see people eating, drinking, and dancing to music on a cruise liner out at sea. Suddenly, Godzilla rises up out of the ocean, and everyone on the cruise liner panics. Godzilla dives back in the water, and the scene fades out. Godzilla's like, no, I'm out, baby!
Hey, see you later.
You all get to live.
Right. You're lucky. You can thank me later.
Cut to Professor Remain at the Disaster Response Center. Like before, the place is crowded with people complaining about being compensated for damages and whatnot. The professor meets with a large group of officers and government officials. One of the officials says that if this keeps up, they'll have to close the international shipping lanes. Does the professor have any ideas on how to help? Another official says very bluntly, we want to know if there's a way to kill Godzilla. Professor Remain says, impossible. Godzilla was baptized in the fire of the H-bomb and survived. That's a great line.
It's a great line, yeah.
What could kill it now? The professor says that their priority should be studying Godzilla's incredible powers of survival.
I love that line.
Yeah, right. That's a baller line.
Yeah.
Cut to a room of reporters reading the latest newspaper. One of them agrees with the professor and says it's pathetic to quake in fear. They should be studying Godzilla. Then one reporter from Odo, so the one reporter from Odo Island is there too. And now I learned his name because his boss actually says his name. His name is Hagawara. And his editor is sending him to interview Dr. Serizawa on the double. His editor remarks that he's Professor Yamein's future son-in-law. So that's presumptuous of the editor.
Suddenly he's like, wait, I'm what?
Yeah, Serizawa's like,
what?
Me? I am?
Well, hold on.
Yeah, so reporter Hagawara, he's the guy that was on the island, and he's kind of the main reporter that goes throughout the entire film.
Right.
Cut to Amiko talking to Ogata, her actual boyfriend,
right.
Much to Professor's future chagrin.
Hey, hold on. Wait, what?
What about me? She says, I'm sure Father will understand. Ogata says they have done nothing to be ashamed of, but when he thinks about Sarasada, he loses his nerve. Ogata goes on, if not for the war, he wouldn't have lost his eye. Amiko reassures her boyfriend that she thinks of Serizawa as an older brother. Ogata tells her, thank you.
Thanks.
Just then, Shinkichi walks in to tell Amiko that the reporter is here to see her. Mr. Hagawara walks into the room and says he has a favor to ask. The reporter tried to see Dr. Serizawa, but he politely refused. Can Amiko introduce him? It's very urgent. Ogata says he can go with them and explain things to Serizawa personally. Amiko disagrees, but thinks it's better if the doctor heard about their relationship from her instead. It'll be easier on him. Ogata agrees and says he'll be discussing Shinjiki's schooling with her father. Amiko leaves with Haragawa, the reporter. Sorry, guys, I'm getting a little tongue-tied on the names. I apologize.
You can't speak Japanese? You're not knowing, you don't know all these Japanese names?
I was only there for 2.5 weeks. I should be very fluent by now, right?
Right. Come on. How dare you?
But then now they address the fact that, Shinjiki needs schooling and everything. So now they're teaching him too. It's like they got a new pet.
I'm thinking of 80s sitcoms where this could go down.
No, dude, this is an 80s sitcom setup. If you take Godzilla out and everything else is just an 80s sitcom.
Doing it the best I can.
Love it.
Don't be surprised if that shows up on a future TV Obscura watch list.
Oh,
wink, wink.
Buddy. Save it, baby. Save it. Cut to the Serizawa Research Laboratory. Dr. Serizawa says to the reporter, there must be some mistake. That's not what my research is about at all. Haragawa remarks that their correspondent in Switzerland heard from a German scientist that when Serizawa's plan is finished, it'll be a major breakthrough in defeating Godzilla. The doctor says he doesn't know any German scientists. Undeterred, Hagawara asks... Undeterred, I can write these sentences, but saying them, I wrote this. I wrote this.
Yeah, Corey actually wrote this in kanji. He's calligraphy, He's really good with a brush.
Undeterred, Hagawara asks what it is that Serizawa is working on. The man with the eye patch says it's nothing worth discussing. Mr. Hagawara thanks the doctor for his time, and Amiko says she's going to stay and talk to Serizawa. She walks the reporter out and tells him that the doctor can be moody, but since the ice is now broken, he can keep trying to get answers. Hagawara takes his leave, and Amiko goes back to talk to Serizawa. Now that it's just them alone, Amiko asks the doctor what he's working on. Father's been wondering too, she says. Serizawa says that he will show her, but she mustn't tell a soul about it. He says he's risking his life on the project. Amiko swears she'll keep it a secret, and Serizawa leads her to his lab in the basement. Inside, there are all kinds of beakers and other scientific instruments, as well as a giant aquarium filled with fish in the center of the room. This gave me flashbacks to Shockwaves. Remember in the fish tank?
Oh, yeah. Shockwaves.
That was a great movie, by the way.
Oh, my God.
Love that movie.
Go back and listen to that breakdown. That was fun.
That was fun. You did a great job on that one, buddy.
Well, thank you, sir.
Dr. Serizawa walks over to the fish tank and drops a tiny metal sphere in it. He throws a switch and electricity charges the sphere. We see the water in the tank start to bubble, then Amiko screams and looks away. So we don't actually see now what happens. The two of them leave the lab, and Amiko is clearly disturbed by what she saw. Serizawa says she's the only person that he's shown his project to, and to not forget the promise she made to keep it a secret.
She's a liar! Cue the Rollins band song. Liar!
Are you a big Rollins fan?
Oh, yeah. I used to... One of my tattoos, I had it changed as I got older, but it was like the angry sun that he had on his back. I was a huge Rollins. I read his poetry, saw his spoken word performances, saw him with Black Flag back in the day. I was a huge Henry Rollins fan, Rollins band guy. Yeah.
That was like, I mean, I was into White Zombie and Alice in Chains and everything, but I never got into Rollins, although I do like his song on the Crow soundtrack, Ghost Rider, Motorcycle Hero.
Yeah, he's eclectic. It's like spoken word at times, punk rock at times. Depends. He's not everybody's cup of tea, but I used to work out to his that one album, Weight, I think it's called. It's just a big like dumbbell, or it's a weight as the cover. And I loved Rollins. Eric and I would always rock out to Rollins and.
Nice. Nice. And Black Flag, that was his band, right?
Yeah, I mean he was in Black Flag for a little while, and I saw him in Black Flag back in the day. If you've never seen any of his spoken word stuff when he talks about one of his closest friends witnessing one of his closest friends dying, it's really intense. He's really funny though, like super talented dude. Love that guy.
Yeah, I always liked him as a personality, like a human being every time I saw him, but I never got into his music.
Yeah, it's like jazz, man. Like it's a particular style. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, very cool.
But she's a liar.
I remember that song. I do remember that song.
She is a liar.
Yeah, she is. She is. For a little bit. Amiko will eventually not be a liar anymore. Cut to Amiko being greeted by Ogata and Shinkichi as she returns home with a frown on her face. They can tell something is wrong, and Ogata asks if something happened. She says, no, nothing at all, because she's a liar.
Yeah, this would be really funny if they had like 80s sitcom, music that would play in between each scene.
Yeah. She then goes into the kitchen to make refreshments for everyone because this is 1954. Professor Remain walks in with his white lab coat and sits at the table. Amiko brings him a drink. Everyone is quiet. Just then they hear giant footsteps and sirens in the distance. The professor stands up and says, "It's Godzilla!" They all go outside, but Amiko tells Ogata that she didn't get a chance to tell Serizawa about them. He gives her a nice tap on the shoulder, and then chases after the professor and Shinjiki while Amiko stays at the house. I like how he just does that, it's okay. And then he goes off.
Right.
Here we go. Some action. Cut to Godzilla rising up out of the water in a bay. Maybe Tokyo Bay? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not named, is it?
No, I don't think so, but it seems to be the same place he pops out of, so I assume it's Tokyo Bay.
Yeah.
There are soldiers on the shore waiting for him, and they open fire with their machine guns. Undeterred, the great kaiju walks slowly towards land. We see people in the area being evacuated as the military reinforcements move in. Professor Remain, Ogata, and Shinjiki try and make it past the soldiers, but they are stopped. The professor says, "Tell your CO not to shine searchlights on Godzilla. It will only make him angrier." But the soldier says he can't leave his post. Ogata spots a hill they can go up and get a better view. Now Godzilla is on land and walking towards the city. He's crushing everything in his path as people run in terror. We see a train speeding along, unaware of the impending danger. Godzilla slowly walks to the train tracks. The conductors see him, but it's too late. They try to stop the train, but it smashes into Godzilla's foot, causing it to derail and crash. This pisses Godzilla off, of course. He picks the train engine up in his mouth and throws it down. Then he steps on it. Fuck your train. Everyone watches in horror at the chaos and destruction. Then Godzilla picks up a bridge and throws it down too before finally walking back into the ocean. A job well done, he'd say.
I say good day, sir.
So this is the first major bit of destruction, like the scene. What did Bodhi think of this scene here?
I mean, he was pretty silent through the whole thing, but he's enjoying it thoroughly. So
yeah. What'd you think of all this right here?
I loved it. It was so cool, and especially with the models and everything. And like I was trying to explain to him too. I said, back in the day, this was groundbreaking. No one had seen stuff like this before, so it was a really big deal. He's like, oh yeah, I know. It's awesome.
Yeah, dude, and I love all the power lines and everything, and honestly, like Japan still looks like that. I don't know if it's because they get regular earthquakes that they don't kind of put the power lines underground, but it looks like this, man. There's just like power lines everywhere, and I kind of love it, for some reason. I think it's really cool looking visually.
I get nervous about all that electricity above, or below, who cares, whatever. It's all doing the same thing to you.
You're like, electricity, ha, ha.
I can't see where it's coming from.
Fade into another newspaper headline. Research teams arrive from around the world. And also there's a montage of a bunch of 1954 planes landing at the airport. This is really cool to see all the different, you could tell they're like long distance airplanes,
Right. Yeah. Remember the good old days when we could fly and we had leg room?
Oh, bro. Bro. Gots to have that leg room, baby.
I was on a seaplane, and I had more leg room on the seaplane than I did in planes nowadays.
Yeah. I don't remember what stand-up comedian said it, but they were talking about like what's wrong with capitalism? Just look at the fact that we took the most magnificent thing man has ever done, flying, ever created, ever able to do, and we've turned it into a miserable experience. And that's capitalism at its peak.
Yep.
Sign up for our Patreon. We need money.
Exactly. and by the way, sign up for our Patreon. Come on, support artists, support creators.
Exactly.
Creators.
Back at the Disaster Response Center, a presentation is being given to a room full of officers, scientists, and reporters. First, we'll erect a barbed wire barrier all along the coast, 100 feet high and 165 feet deep. We'll send 50,000 volts through it to electrocute Godzilla. Of course, we'll have to evacuate not only outside the perimeter, but also everyone living within 1,600 feet of the inside of the barrier. The Defense Force and Coast Guard will carry out their respective duties outlined in this security plan without delay. By the way,
Harumph.
I love the term Defense Force because they don't have, I think Japan doesn't have an active military. I think that's like, they're not allowed to. But the fact that like Defense Force is what they call their, their military, it reminds me of Robotech, dude.
Yeah, totally. I love that. Defense Force. Gonna keep you safe from everybody. Oh, yeah. From the kaiju. Oh, yeah.
By the way, guys and gals, I know that you've all been loving our Macross episode of TV Obscure. It's probably one of our most downloaded, listened to episodes of TV Obscure ever. And I just want to say that I am still watching Macross, my Blu-ray. That is now my nighttime watching, viewing before I go to bed. And I'm actually on episodes that I've never seen before. And holy fucking shit, it's so good. I
can't wait to dig into it.
You got the Blu-ray, right? You get it in the mail when you were away?
I sure did.
Oh, my man.
Patreons are going, did I pay for that?
Yes, you did. You also paid, and Rob, you paid for our copies of Criterion Collection of Godzilla. Yes, Patreon members, you paid for our Macross Blu-rays. As well as maybe a bill or two, like electricity bill or something, but it's mostly Blu-rays.
Go out to a 5-star restaurant. Thank you, Patreon.
Thank you, Patreon.
No, trust us, folks. That ain't happening.
No 5-star restaurants here. Actually, probably no 5-star restaurants in Eugene, period. Cut to a montage of people being escorted from their homes by the military as an announcement is being made that Godzilla has been spotted, and the coastal areas are between Tokyo and Yokohama are being evacuated. By the way, Yokohama is where I saw the giant Gundam, where they had the giant Gundam thing, the Mobile Suit Gundam thing.
They're taking it down right now, I think.
Yeah, I think they're going to move it somewhere else. I don't think they're just dismantling it completely. I think they're actually going to move it, but that was amazing. And I posted the video on Patreon of the whole 11-minute thing that it does. I kind of just put my video on and then put my hand on Myra's shoulder and just kind of, used her as a tripod and why. I mean, it was like, I don't even fucking care about Mobile Suit Gundam, but just seeing a giant life-size mech was unbelievable.
That's amazing. You know what else is a tripod?
What you're not seeing right now, folks, is Zak's sly smile and his eyebrow raises. He's like, I love
tripod.
You, buddy.
I love you too.
Cut to a montage. Okay, I said that already. We see the full might of Japan's military being mobilized as the Godzilla theme song kicks in. We also see the giant electrified barbed wire fence being erected along the coast. As the fence is being tested, news reports come in on the radio. This is a special news report. All residents of Minato, Shinagawa, by the way, Shinagawa is where the Godzilla store is, and that's where Myra and I had a great dinner in Shinagawa.
Cool. Did you eat lizard?
No, I ate fried chicken. That was fucking amazing.
Close enough. Was it ashkaraji?
I don't know.
I think it. What's it called? Ashkaraji.
So Myra did a better job of learning Japanese than I did. I just did I had some simple stuff and everything, and she was talking to the waiter. He's not really the waiter. Like, they're all like sort of small owned places and everything. And he was explaining what was in the soup, and he was like, he kind of wanted to emphasize. He's like, pork stomach. It's pork stomach. And Myra was like, oh, okay, that's cool. I'll take that. I started shaking my head no, because I'm like, I'm not going to eat that. And his response was, oh no. He was great, dude. He was fucking
that's
awesome.
Funny.
I
you're
love
literally
that guy.
You're literally Forrest Whitaker in Bloodsport. You're like, what is this that we're eating?
Yeah,
and then you find out, you're like, oh my God, this is disgusting.
I know. And I know you would probably eat the, pork stomach. I can't, dude. I can't do that. My mind, I can't wrap my mind around some shit, man. But that place, I had the best fucking fried chicken I've ever had in my entire fucking life there.
Ashkaraji.
Probably.
It's not what it's called. Someone right now is going, that's not what it's called, but that's what I call it.
All right, so everyone's been ordered to evacuate. The Ota wards have been ordered to evacuate. Cut to Amiko and Ogata listening to the same report at Professor Yermain's house. We can see searchlights in the distance. Ogata says he's going to ask Amiko's father for consent today. She smiles, then runs to greet her dad at the front door, who's just now coming home. Professor Yermain looks absolutely defeated as he walks in. Amiko asks what's wrong as she takes his jacket. The professor sits down at the table and says, all they can think of is killing Godzilla. Why don't they try to study its resistance to radiation? This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Ogata sits down at the table and tells Professor Yermain that he disagrees. Amika has sort of an uh-oh look on her face.
Yeah, she's like doing the...
Cut
it! Don't you... Shut up! Shut up!
The professor says, Ogata, I'm not saying this on some kind of whim. No scientist in the world has ever seen anything like Godzilla. It's a priceless specimen found only in Japan. Ogata says that's no reason to let such a violent monster run loose. Godzilla is no different from the H-bomb hanging over Japan's head. The professor replies, then shouldn't we unlock the secret of how it survived exposure to such high radiation? Ogata tries to explain his position, but Professor Yermain cuts him off and asks, so you want to kill it too? Then he tells the young man to get out of his house. The professor walks into the other room, and Ogata and Amiko look crestfallen. I'm so happy that I was able to actually throw crestfallen in here.
Yeah, good for you.
Amiko apologizes for her father, but Ogata admits he wasn't very tactful. He says you'll find the right time to talk to the professor about them.
Yeah, no.
Just then a news bulletin comes on the radio, then breaks the tension. Godzilla continues to advance towards the Tokyo-Yokohama coast. The security barrier is charged with high-voltage electricity. Please exercise extreme caution. So, Zach, have you ever botched telling a parent that... that's more specific. Have you ever had a bad experience meeting one of your girlfriend's parents?
Well, Kristen's first time I met her mom, I was going to a... oh, gosh. It was like a wedding reception after the fact. You know, like months later, they had a gathering of all like the family members in town or whatever. And I was wearing like, you know, $200 jeans, like Lucky jeans or whatever, going to this thing. And Kristen's like, I don't know if you can wear those. I go, it's the only thing I packed because we flew up. And she calls her mom and she's like, Mom, is it okay if Zach wears jeans? And she's like, what? No, you know, like super. And I'm like, oh shit, her mom's very traditional. So we went shopping in a mall to get me like khakis so I could wear khakis to this. So lame. Cause I'm like, come on, who cares? But I wanted to save face, you know, I wanted to look good. Flip side, I'm asking her, you know, it's such a weird tradition to ask your, like the father or the mother of the bride for their hand in marriage. But I was in the bathroom at a Chinese restaurant with her dad, and I asked her dad to marry her, and he's like, of course, yeah. And it was a wonderful moment in the bathroom. It was wonderful.
Were you guys peeing next to each other in the urinals?
We were holding each other's penises.
There you go.
Yes, we were. It's a moment. I love how he's like, I'll ask him at another time. You're like, no, you pretty much sealed the deal with this guy.
Yeah, you fucked yourself already.
I believe in killing everyone. Oh, well, I believe in saving everyone. I guess we agree to disagree. Yeah, I guess.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, it doesn't get more awkward than that.
Yeah. The bottom line is, folks, if you want to marry somebody, you just marry him.
That's what I did.
Exactly.
I did. Yeah.
Love is love.
Love is love.
The earth is lighter and the earth is darker. It is what it is.
And going back to the bathroom comment, I got to say, Japan's bathrooms are amazing. All the toilets have, you know, bidets, just like Zach's does.
Yeah, I have bidets in every bathroom in our house.
I know. They're amazing. One thing I hated, they do not have the dividers between the urinals. Not a single bathroom. And they're all clean, by the way, but not a single bathroom has dividers between the urinals. And I
can't deal
hate
with
that.
What about stalls?
Oh, yeah. Stall. And, well, here's the thing. The stalls are great because the fucking door goes all the way to the bottom of the stall. Like, in almost all the bathrooms. You know what I mean? Like, you can't even see the feet underneath. It's wonderful. But you do not have privacy in the urinals. Now, the urinals are a bit different. They're a bit more... You can kind of go into them a little bit, but I kind of didn't want to, you know? But, man,
what,
the dividers are clutch, buddy. The dividers are clutch.
Yeah, I can't do that. I remember going to like concerts and there's a big trough and everyone's peeing.
Yep.
Like what how is this cool? This is not cool.
No, I can't do it. I can't. I get stage fright. I'm that guy. I get the fucking stage fright. I can't fucking pee like in front of other people like that, dude. The trough is ridiculous.
My brother had a friend in high school. He was kind of a doofus. He would always say the most awkward, stupid things. And I remember my brother telling me the story about how they were both in the bathroom and his friend leans over and looks at my brother and he's like, hey Schaefer, is that your dick, dude? And Eric goes, yeah. He goes, you got a big dick. He's like, thanks. He's like, yeah, that's a big dick. Thanks,
bro. I've never examined another one of my friend's penises. And I've also never seen Zach in khakis before in my entire fucking life. I was going to mention that earlier. I've never seen you fucking wear khakis in my entire fucking life. We've been friends like fucking Christ. 10? More than 10 years now? I don't even know, man, but I've never fucking seen you in khakis. I can't even picture it.
I used to wear polos and khakis when I was a teacher. All right. Never again. Never again.
Never again. Yeah, I'm Mr. Sweatpants now, baby.
Oh, me too, dude.
All right. We're going to get some Crazy shit going on now. Cut to soldiers shining massive spotlights out on the ocean while tanks roll down city streets. We also see mobile cannons have been situated on the hilltops. Just then, Godzilla rises out of the water and starts walking onto land. Everyone watches with bated breath as the monster walks up to the electrified fence. And smashes right through it. Fuck your fence, he says. The defense force opens fire with their machine guns and cannons, doing little to slow Godzilla down. As the mighty kaiju is being bombarded by live rounds, he unleashes his deadly radioactive breath on part of the giant fences and melts them to scrap. Godzilla lets out a triumphant roar and begins to make his way inland as people run in terror. The King of Monsters uses his radioactive breath again to destroy an entire city block and all the people in it. There's a quick shot of people dying, which is quite gruesome. Fire trucks go rushing to put out the flames, but Godzilla sends them straight to hell before continuing his path of destruction through the city. Now a column of tanks line up and start firing their massive guns at Godzilla. When they realize they have no effect, they make a hasty retreat. So we actually get our first, the movie isn't bloody, but we get our first shot of, people actually getting killed by his radioactive breath.
Yeah, I love it. It's awesome.
At the Disaster Relief Center, reports are coming in of fires raging out of control in Shimura District. The fire in Matadi is also spreading. Another report says that the defenses have been breached. A radio officer in the headquarters tells everyone to initiate Security Command Code 129. Abandon attack formations and focus all efforts on fighting the fires and rescuing civilians. Cut to a platoon listening to the new orders when Godzilla appears above the building behind them and roars. He's kind of a ninja. They didn't even hear him coming, you know? Hey guys. An officer orders his men to take cover, and they all run as the car and its occupants, because there was 3 people in the car that didn't get out, get blown up by Godzilla's radioactive breath. I assume Bodhi's noticing all these deaths now.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna say he loves it. Boy, he loves it.
He's a 10-year-old boy. I would have loved it too, man.
Yeah, we joke. We joke with things like this where we say, I like violence, and he's like, I like violence. I'm like, yeah, don't say that around people that you don't know, though. He's like, but I do. I'm like, yeah, okay, just don't say it around people you know.
Because you're a boy. You're a 10-year-old boy. Of course you do. Of course.
And then he quotes Nacho Libre. He's like, I don't believe in God. I believe in science.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We see a montage of empty streets as everyone has either fled or been evacuated. This is the darkest part. This is the darkest fucking scene. The camera focuses on a mother and her 3 children huddled next to a building. She holds them close as Godzilla destroys everything around them, and she says, "We're going to join Daddy. We'll be where Daddy is soon." And then we see a fire engulf the building that they're next to. I kind of wasn't expecting this at all.
It's dark.
You texted me that. You're like, this movie's fucking dark, dude.
Sarate.
Wadata. I love Pootie Tang. Great movie, by the way.
Yeah.
We see a small squad of soldiers huddling together in a subway entrance, but Godzilla topples a clock tower on them. Fuck you all. High atop a massive watch...
Save the clock tower. Save the clock tower.
Right? Back to the Future. High atop a massive watchtower, a handful of brave reporters are giving live updates of the rampage. This is absolutely unbelievable, yet it's unfolding before our very eyes. Godzilla is leaving a sea of flames in its wake. We see Godzilla walking through the flaming city. The reporter continues, "For those watching at home, this is no play or movie. This is real, the story of the century. Will the world be destroyed by a 2-million-year-old monster?" We see Godzilla walking through the city and fucking shit up. Cut to the Disaster Relief Center, and everyone is grabbing their things to evacuate. They barely make it out as the roof comes collapsing down. Back on the watchtower, the reporters are using flashes to take pictures of Godzilla. Of course, this gets the attention of the great beast, and he starts walking towards them. He's like, hey, guys, what's going on? The one reporter that's been talking the whole time says, Godzilla is heading this way, right for our TV tower. There's no time to run. Will we survive? Spoiler alert, you won't.
Nope.
The brave man never stops reporting. It's getting closer. This looks like the end. It has the tower in his hand. What power? This really is the end. Farewell, ladies and gentlemen. Godzilla pushes the tower over, sending all the reporters screaming to their deaths. Another scene that I forgot about and it was equally as shocked by.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think oftentimes people think about the monster movies where it's like monster versus monster, but when it's just monster versus man, it's dark.
Well, and also too, like later as the series evolves, Godzilla becomes like our protector. He becomes like a good guy and everything. But this Godzilla, and we know, he dies at the end. It's kind of like how in the first Mortal Kombat game, Sub-Zero is bad, but he becomes so popular that they make it canon that Sub-Zero dies in the first game. And then after that, Mortal Kombat 2 and on, his younger brother, is a good guy. Because they're like, Sub-Zero was so popular, like, we got to make him a good guy, But originally he was a bad guy. And so I feel like this is kind of similar, like in this first movie, because they don't quite know where things are going to go. He's the bad guy here, although he's not really. It's more like he's just on a rampage. He's, because of reasons, because of, having his habitat blown up. He's not malicious, but he is the bad guy. He is the antagonist here.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know what more to say about that, but other than the fact that, people end up liking him more than the humans at the end of this.
Yeah, they do. And
bring more Godzilla, make more Godzilla. That was amazing.
Yeah. On the Criterion Blu-ray that Zach and I have, they talked to a kind of a famous film critic. There's like a little 14-minute segment talking about like sort of the cultural importance of Godzilla. And he does actually talk about the fact that Godzilla is so slow and he's not fast allows us to empathize with him because he's kind of like a human. And he's like, this was really illustrated in the American remake of Godzilla where he's fast and you don't empathize with him because he's not very human. But here you actually can empathize with the character or with the creature.
And then when they make the remake or the one that came out, I don't know, 10 years ago with Bryan Cranston, you're like, do you have sympathy for him? Do you not have sympathy for him? Yes or no?
I think you lose something with him not being a guy in a rubber suit. Like, I think something is lost there, but I don't know. I don't think Godzilla -1, I don't think he's a guy in a rubber suit there and everyone loves that movie. So I don't know if it's the CGI or the way it's shot or whatever, but I'm sure, though, that having a guy in a rubber suit doing all the motions, they're motions that we can sort of recognize, which probably allow us to empathize with him.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think so.
Sure. We just need Charlton Heston in this movie. Get that lizard out of here.
You blew it up, you damn dirty lizards.
Yeah, yours sounds more Charlton Heston. Mine's more like Kirk Douglas.
I am Omega.
And then David Irons would show up. Why do I sound like Michael Caine? I don't know.
I don't know. Back in Tokyo, we see Professor Yurmain, Amiko, Agata, and Shinkichi watch as Godzilla walks back into the sea, but not before destroying one last bridge on his way out.
Baboosh.
I do love how he's like, I'm heading out, and he's like looking at fuck this bridge.
I don't like that.
Shinkichi calls Godzilla a damned beast and cries. Now the Air Force arrives with their fancy jets to bombard Godzilla with missiles. As you might guess, they have no effect on the monster, mainly because none of them actually hit him. The best part is when Godzilla swats at the jets with his little T-Rex arms. I love. Hey. Everyone on land cheers as Godzilla walks back into the sea, but they know he'll be back. The scene fades out. I mean, technically, this was kind of the climax moment of the movie. I mean, the climax, we're going to get the quote-unquote proper climax in very shortly with the oxygen destroyer and everything, but this was the main big set piece.
Yeah.
And I got to ask you, man, like, you know, put on your 2024 goggles. Like, how does this hold up to today? Like, new viewers, how do you think it holds up?
I mean, Bodhi loved it, so there you go, you know?
Yeah, and so did Myra. This first time she saw it, too.
Yeah, if you go into it with no judgment, it's fantastic. If you go into it going, so fake, then you're not listening to us.
But dude, I mean, it's also, they did a great job of just filming it, man. Like, there's so many composite shots where like he's in the background behind the city and it's on fire and he's walking. I'm like, you can kind of see where the composites are, but you're like, this was done with just such a level of care and you know, you could just feel it, you know, and it works. It all fucking works.
Oh yeah, no, it's really well done. And it, like we said, we've been saying through this whole thing, it still holds up. It still looks beautiful, clearly, because Criterion put it out.
Yeah.
Criterion's putting out a deluxe set of this, then, you know, it has merit.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, Criterion is the fucking gold standard. It always has been.
Right.
First DVD I ever bought was the Criterion RoboCop.
Me same. Me same.
Me same. Me love
man.
you guys. Me same.
Me same.
You became Bizarro.
Me same with that and The Rock. That was the other one I got.
Welcome to The Rock.
Welcome to The Rock. Oh, that's Taylor Swift. Sorry.
Hey everybody, Corey here. I just wanted to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Hey everybody, I'm Tim.
And I'm Dean.
And we're the hosts of Talking Back. We're a retro-based podcast covering movies, comics, video games, and more.
Check us out every Monday where we hit the rewind button and dig into some of our favorite content from the past. We like to keep things fun, lighthearted, and informative.
Do you feel like you need more nostalgia in your life? Then check out Talking Back. We're available everywhere podcasts are found.
Have you been wondering where's the beef? Well, on our podcast, Throwback Trivia Takedown, you might just find that out, as well as some other things about the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
We're a nostalgic-based trivia show that pits two challengers head-to-head in a duel of the decades, with categories ranging from movies, TV, and music, to slang, food, and fashion. You're sure to get the best in retro-themed trivia.
So strap on your jelly shoes, grab a Surge, and walk like an Egyptian to your favorite podcast app and check out Throwback Trivia Takedown.
I heard even Mikey likes it.
And now, back to the show. The next day, we see a massive relief effort helping the wounded out of the destroyed city. In one of the crowded hospitals, a radio is reporting that a research team headed by Professor Romaine has been formed to find countermeasures. The camera dollies in on a doctor checking a young girl with a Geiger counter. She's been fully irradiated. We also hear an announcement over the intercom that Otaga's patrol boat departure time has been changed and he must report to the briefing room. As Otaga is walking through the building, he sees a dead mother being carried away as her young daughter watches and cries. Amiko tries to comfort the girl by telling her that her mom will be back soon, because Amiko is a liar.
She is. She's a liar. She's a liar!
That's what I was waiting for. Agata walks up to Amiko and she says she has something important to tell him. They go into the stairwell for privacy, and she tells him that she can't keep it quiet anymore. She can break her promise with a clean conscience. Agata asks, what promise? Amiko says, I made a promise to Serizawa. I kept it a secret, even from you, but now I have to break my promise. It was the day Mr. Hagawara and I went to see him. That's when it happened. The camera pans in close on her face, and the scene fades to a flashback.
It's funny because, so she's a liar, and then she had this information. I mean, she had this information well earlier. Well, I guess timeline-wise, it makes sense when she reveals it, but
Yeah,
you know.
But she did, and I know what you're saying. You're like, she could have prevented the deaths of so many people if she had just, mentioned what.
So basically, I'm gonna have a trial and accuse her of being an accessory to murder.
Yeah, like put her on Nuremberg trial. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Sure.
Why not? Let's do it.
I'm with you,
Do
buddy.
it.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Amiko, not my favorite character in the movie.
Same.
Also, not my favorite actor either.
Same.
All right, so this is the flashback. We see the tiny metal capsule go into the fish tank and the water bubbles. But now we also see what made Amiko scream in terror. All the fish turn into skeletons in an instant. We also see the conversation afterwards. Dr. Serizawa says that he destroyed all the oxygen in the water. All the organisms in the tank suffocated. Their remains were then liquefied by my oxygen destroyer. It splits oxygen atoms into fluid. Amiko is speechless. The doctor goes on, I had intended to research oxygen thoroughly from every angle. In doing so, I discovered an unexpected form of energy. After my first experiment, I was filled with horror at the power I'd unleashed. This was a bit like Oppenheimer.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I think that's the intention.
Agreed. Have you seen Oppenheimer?
No, I haven't. I saw Fat Man and Little Boy back in the day, and I'm familiar with the history of it.
Okay.
I was actually fascinated a little bit with it. I don't know. I'm not the biggest Christopher Nolan fan. I know everyone's like, "What? Are you serious?" And it is what it like. Didn't do anything for me, but I'm sure it's great. But no, this is totally like that. But yet, I love what this guy does that Oppenheimer didn't do.
Yes. Yeah, me too.
And that Oppenheimer should have done.
And I'll put it on record, and I'll say the exact same thing as you. I am not a big Christopher Nolan fan. Now, that being said, Batman Begins is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh, it's great.
But it kind of goes downhill from there. I didn't really care for Interstellar. I didn't really care for the latter Batman films. Never saw Tenet because I kind of don't care. I also didn't care about Inception either. I didn't really like Inception. I don't really care for Christopher Nolan. And I know that's a big thing. Like, everyone fucking loves him. But I'm with you, buddy. Not a big fan.
I mean, Inception's ripped off Scrooge McDuck comic book.
Yeah, I remember when that came out. dude. I remember.
Did he do Memento also?
I mean, I enjoyed Memento. Actually, I like Memento and I like Batman Begins. I think they're amazing fucking movies, but I'm not a big fan of like The Dark Knight. I'm not a big fan of Dark Knight Rises. And then for me, it literally just keeps going down and down and down to the point where I was like, why bother watching Tenet? I'm at this. The trajectory is just down at this point.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of movies that I won't watch. You know what I mean? Like, I'm at this stage of my life, I want to watch a movie that I plan to watch more than once. I feel like a lot of those movies are the movies you just listed off. I'll watch them once and then that's it.
Will you watch Godzilla 1954 again?
Yeah, I would watch it again.
Nice.
Because I own it. Thanks to Rob.
Dr. Serizawa picks up a bowl and says, just a small ball of this substance could turn all of Tokyo Bay into an aquatic graveyard. Amiko asks why he developed such a thing. The doctor says that his research is strictly in the interest of science. Amiko asks, but what if your discovery is used for some awful purpose? Serizawa says, exactly. If used as a weapon, it could lead humanity to extinction, just like the H-bomb. I'm determined to find a use for the oxygen destroyer that will benefit society. Until then, I won't reveal its existence. Dr. Serizawa says that if anyone forces him to use it, he's willing to give up his own life and destroy his work before he lets that happen. Amiko says she understands, and the flashback ends. Back to the present, Amiko says she's now broken her promise. Ogata reassures her that she did it to save them from utter disaster. He's sure Serizawa will forgive her.
Thanks for giving us these secret codes to destroy mankind. I'm sure the guy who created it, who didn't want to do that in the first place, will totally forgive you.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
It's all good. And I'm going to ask your dad to marry me if I can have your hand in marriage, because it's all good.
It's all good. Akira is he's very positive about things. He thinks everything will be okay. All right, dude, by the way, real quick, breaking a movie down, you really sort of learn the structure of the film. Yeah. Every scene is very quick. We're about to get into, literally we're in the climax of the movie. This is probably the single longest scene in the entire film. It's interesting how it makes you realize how fast-paced the movie was up until this point.
No, you're right. Again, 90 minutes for this kind of movie back in the day it's I wouldn't be surprised if it was short. It could have been longer, but I'm glad it's not. It's like a perfect pace.
Yeah, I think it's very perfectly paced.
Yeah.
So, cut to Dr. Serizawa working in his lab. He hears a knock and finds Amiko upstairs. He's startled to find that Ogata is with her too. The boyfriend cuts right to the chase and says he has a favor to ask Serizawa. The doctor tells them both to take a seat and asks what kind of favor. Amiko looks ashamed as Ogata says, "I want to use the oxygen destroyer." Dr. Serizawa protests and says he doesn't know what they're talking about. Then he shoots a look at Amiko. Ogata says, "Why keep up this pretense?" Just then, Amiko says she broke her promise and told Ogata everything. She begs the doctor to let them use the weapon, and she begs for his forgiveness. Ogata says, "Amiko couldn't bear the sight of all the destruction. Please try to forgive her. You're our only hope, Serizawa Kenobi."
Right, seriously. I expected that too.
The doctor says to Ogata that if Amiko told him his secret, then the young man must understand why they can't use it. He refuses. Serizawa tells him to leave and goes back to his lab and shuts the door. Ogata and Amiko follow him downstairs. Ogata manages to get the door open just as Serizawa is trying to destroy his research. Ogata and the man with the eye patch fight over a box of notes. Amiko tries to break the men up, but Ogata gets a nasty gash on his forehead during the scuffle. Serizawa helps the young man to his feet and into a chair, while Amiko tends to his wound. Serizawa asks Ogata to forgive him. "If I could put it to good use, I'd be the first to reveal it to the world. But right now, it's nothing but a weapon of mass destruction. Please understand." Amiko puts a bandage around Ogata's head, and the young man says, "I do understand. But if we don't stop Godzilla now, what's to become of us?" Dr. Serizawa says that if the oxygen destroyer is used even once, the politicians of the world won't stand idly by. They'll inevitably turn it into a weapon, and as a human being, he can't allow it. Ogata nods in agreement, then asks what should they do about the horror before them. He pleads hard with the scientist and says that only Serizawa can save them from this tragedy. Even if you use it to defeat Godzilla, how can it be used as a weapon if you don't publish your research? Serizawa reminds Ogata that humans are weak creatures. Even if he burns his notes, everything is still in his head. As long as I'm alive, who can say I won't be coerced into using it again? Serizawa puts his head in his hands and wishes he never invented the oxygen destroyer. Just then, a special news broadcast starts playing on the TV. A prayer for peace is being offered up nationwide today. Our three protagonists watch and listen as a choir of girls is singing their prayer in Tokyo as scenes of Godzilla's destruction are shown.
Thou shalt not fall, thou shalt not heal. Cry, little sister.
God, Lost Boys, man. So fucking good.
Yeah, dude. If you would like for us to break down, never mind. Just kidding.
This causes Serizawa to change his mind. He says they win, but this will be the first and last time he will ever allow the oxygen destroyer to be used. The doctor proceeds to burn his notes so no one can replicate his work. Amiko falls to her knees crying. She knows how important Serizawa's work was to him. Her would-be suitor says that's okay. This is the only way to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands.
It's okay, baby. It's okay. You don't
baby,
know.
it's okay.
I know everything. Don't worry.
The scene fades out. Now, the only thing I got to say about the pacing, Zach, is that, like, as long as this scene is, you know that it's all inevitably, like, nothing, because he's eventually going to agree to it. So I almost, like, on a second viewing, I was almost, like, sort of like, all right, let's just get to it. Like, there's a lot of talking, and he's going to eventually turn, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, you kind of just want to sort of get to the chase, you know?
It's a little filler, because you're like, yeah, because you know where this is headed. It's a little bit of soapbox. It's a statement on the nuclear bomb. That's what it really is.
Right.
So they had to do this.
The filmmakers are making a statement here, basically. Cut to a frigate squadron racing across the ocean. On the lead boat, we see a large group of reporters covering the event. The decisive moment draws near. We'll soon know if this monster terrorizing the world will be buried forever in the ocean's depths. A Geiger counter is being used to pinpoint Godzilla's location. I love how it's just like one guy with a little Geiger counter. It's not like a Geiger counter device on the boat, but it's literally just a guy with a Geiger counter in the water.
One is all you need. It's not the size that matters.
Touche.
It's the motion of the ocean.
Also in the crowd of people in the ship, we see Amiko, all of our regulars, Ogata, Dr. Serizawa, Shinkichi, Professor Yumaine, and even the reporter, Mr. Hagawara. Dr. Serizawa asks Ogata for a diving suit, but Ogata and Professor Yumaine both protest. The doctor has no diving experience. Serizawa reminds them that this is the only oxygen destroyer he has left. He must be present to make sure everything works correctly. Ogata relents and says they'll both go together.
Look, this is the only gold star in the video game.
This is the only Benoit ball that I got left.
Yes, you see this?
It is, by the way, a giant Benoit ball.
It is.
The reporter continues. The only batch of oxygen destroyer in the world. How much power does it possess? The inventor, Dr. Serizawa, refuses to say. All we can do now is pray for success. We see the two men, Ogata and Serizawa, getting into their diving suits. A metal suitcase is opened and a large container holding another metal capsule is revealed. This metal capsule is much bigger than the one Serizawa used when he demonstrated the oxygen destroyer to Amiko. The professor hands the container to Serizawa. The doctor says he never dreamed he'd unveil his discovery to the world like this. Amiko says she'll be praying for them. Professor Yumaine puts his hands on both the men's shoulders and tells them to be very careful. Both men are slowly lowered into the water with air tubes feeding them oxygen. The reporter sort of narrates what's happening.
I love this. I love this whole sequence.
As a massive fan of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea as a kid, I watched that movie all the time. I love underwater shit always.
Same.
Were you a fan of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea? And have you shown that to Bodhi yet?
Haven't showed it to him yet, but yeah, I do love it. Creature from the Black Lagoon, anything that takes place underwater, it's awesome.
Agreed. Once underwater, the two divers begin walking towards Godzilla, who we see is lying on the ocean floor. By the way, the close-ups of the actors in Godzilla are shot dry for wet, which basically means you kind of like smoke them out and it looks sort of smoky. Sometimes they'll actually put a pane of water in front of the camera, but for the most part, it's just smoke is all it is. Now, but there is footage of people actually underwater doing stuff, but that the close-ups are shot dry for wet.
It looks really cool, yeah.
As Godzilla stands up and starts walking towards them, they slowly back away from the terrifying beast. Serizawa taps Ogata on the shoulder, signaling him to head up to the surface while he unleashes the devastating oxygen destroyer. Ogata rises to the surface but screams for Serizawa, who doesn't seem to be following the plan. As Godzilla walks towards the heroic, eye-patched doctor, the oxygen destroyer is unleashed. We see the ocean bubble and Godzilla thrash about in pain. Serizawa tells Ogata that the weapon is working. Then he says, I hope you two will be happy. Farewell. Serizawa pulls out a knife and cuts the rope and oxygen line to the surface.
Dude, it's crazy.
He's now lost to Davy Jones's locker. Just then, Godzilla's head pops out of the water and lets out one last roar before sinking down below the waves. We, the viewers, see a skeleton land at the bottom of the ocean floor. Dude, so when I went to the Godzilla store, I bought it was in one of those capsule toys, you know? It's a glow-in-the-dark skeleton of Godzilla from this, like,
that's cool.
Post-Oxygen Destroyer.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. I haven't put it together yet because I can't read the instructions.
Because you're an ignorant white boy.
That's right, I am. The reporter narrates, "What emotion! What joy! Victory at last! I saw Godzilla's lifeless corpse sink into the sea with my own eyes. This victory belongs to young Dr. Serizawa, scientist of the century." We see Professor Remain sit down in a chair and hang his head low. We also see Shinchiki crying. Ogata and Amiko are crying too. The young man says to his girlfriend, "He wished us happiness together." And Amiko falls to her knees. Professor Yamane says to himself, "I can't believe that Godzilla was the last of its species. If nuclear testing continues, then someday, somewhere in the world, another Godzilla may appear." Everyone on the ship silently bows to their fallen comrade as the music swells and the film fades out. The end.
Wow.
Bro, and they set up, potentials. Like, they knew that to set up potentials, like future entries. Like, this can't be the last Godzilla, Like, I that was smart on their part.
It's a warning sign too, though, 'cause
Yeah.
this is all still super relevant at the time, so it makes absolute sense. It's a shocking ending. It's a downbeat ending, but the proper ending to have.
And if you remember, them had sort of a similar ending where, like, everything happens at the end, and then there's that statement made by, like, somebody that it's like, we have to be vigilant. This can't, atomic testing can't go on because this may happen. It's like all of that time period, man. And, like, I know, we're scared of things now, but man, like, the atomic bomb just went off like 10 years prior. Like,
right.
Can you, like, for us, it would be like 10 years after, like, a warp drive was developed, like something unprecedented that we can't even fathom. Like, in the 50s, these people were living in an unfathomable reality.
Yeah, it's not the same, but when you see a movie or radio play like War of the Worlds, which is based on H.G. Wells' book, obviously, so it was written way before communism and the Red Scare, but I think was influenced by that when it came out.
I think
the movie
so.
came out.
Yeah.
Like any of these movies are supposed to be a threat, but also a reminder and like a warning to the future. So, we took this character that was dark and was a message for, anti-nuclear bombs and turned it into a iconic cartoon character, essentially. Not cartoon character, but iconic character, pop culture character.
Yeah.
It's very interesting if you think about it. Like, because maybe the original intention was not for it to be something that people wear on T-shirts and have models of in their home.
Or wearing underwear. I am wearing my Godzilla boxer briefs as we speak.
Thank you.
I sent you a picture of it. You know what they look like.
I know you did. I know. He literally just stood up and he showed me his. Never mind. Yeah. No. I mean, but that's just the way things are. I don't think Tobe Hooper envisioned Leatherface as being a character that people were going to dress up as for Halloween. Just iconic, horrific characters. Freddy Krueger, Jason. Godzilla is one of those. He's a destructor of life.
Especially if you just take this movie here and none of the other ones.
Right. So, or, you take the googly eyes and you've got Cookie Monster a few decades later. So, yeah, no, but this movie's fantastic. and it still holds up, and I loved it, and I loved your breakdown, and I love you.
Thanks, buddy. I agree with everything you just said. I think this movie does hold up. I think Bodhi and Myra, and I mean even you and I, like you haven't seen this really before, and I had only seen it once in the theater, and I think this movie absolutely fucking holds up in 2024, and I don't just mean like techniques, like film techniques. I think is amazing, but like, I think the message that it's saying is like, we need to treat our environment better, treat living things better. Like, I still don't like, yeah, Godzilla fucks some shit up in this movie, but he's not a bad guy. I think he's just fucking pissed because we blew up his fucking environment. You know what I mean? So I think this movie holds up on a lot of different levels, technically, story-wise, and everything. And yeah, I love it, man. I loved it, and thank you again, Rob, for bringing this one to the table.
Yeah.
This was perfect timing. Honestly, seriously, Rob, like when I was in Japan, I couldn't wait to get home and actually watch this. I was like, I'm so excited to watch Godzilla. This is awesome. But
yeah, Rob, why didn't you choose Shoot to Kill with Tom Berenger and Sidney Poitier after you knew I was going to Vancouver?
or fucking Black Rain, right? That was in Tokyo, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, that'll be the next one.
By the way, I love that movie as a kid. I used to watch that movie.
Great soundtrack too. Hans Zimmer and Greg Allman has a song on there. I'll be holding on.
Dude, by the way, we're watching season 1 of Tokyo Vice on Max right now, and it's fucking great.
I've heard good things. I want to check it out.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't get pulled.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll make it past season 2, but it's definitely, because I saw a bunch of articles popping up. The best show no one's watching, and those articles usually pop up before a show gets canceled. So
right.
But anyways, Rob, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate this. And as Zach says, if you would like to produce the show, swing on over to Patreon and sign up for the highest tier. But, if you're interested in merch or anything really, just to contact us, swing on over to podcastingafterdark.com. That's podcastingafterdark.com. Everything is there. Links to all of our social media, links to all of our podcatchers, links to Patreon, links to our merch store, everything really. So, that's sort of the one-stop shop. If you're not sure how to find us, just go over to podcastingafterdark.com. Same can be said for $2 late fee. $2latefee.com. That's $2latefee.com. TWO. $2latefee.com. Swing over there if you want to check out everything Zach and Dustin and Paul London are doing. Zach, we are pretty much starting out April, a little bit into April, but we're starting it out. What's going on? I mean, I know what's going on, but let the listeners know out there what's happening in April on $2 late fee.
We are going mainstream this month on $2 late fee. We're celebrating the 40th anniversary of 16 Candles.
Is that more mainstream than Pretty Woman? I would say Pretty Woman is more mainstream.
I don't know. I guess so. Dustin thought 16 Candles was more mainstream. I thought Pretty Woman was, but we have a different take on the discussion of the movie because we spent a lot of time talking about the soundtrack or lack thereof. It's kind of a controversial subject. And we have an interview with Annie Golden. She is known for that movie singing a song in the film, but she's actually got a pretty epic career. If you don't know who she is, if you're familiar with the TV show Orange is the New Black, if you're familiar with the 1970s musical Hair, like she was a punk rocker in the 70s, good buddies with David Patrick Kelly from, of course, The Warriors and The Crow and et cetera, et cetera. She's got a great story to tell. She's fascinating, and we have an interview with her. And of course, 80s Kids Unite right after that. And Territory Marks. Territory Marks is changing its format slightly. Normally we do 2 matches per episode. We're doing 1 match per episode because now we're including interviews with wrestling talent. And we did that earlier in the year, but we're starting, this is a season premiere is this month of April. And we've got 2 episodes, like a short, small one match episode, and then an interview coming up in April. So a lot of fun stuff across the board. Podcasting After Dark, $2 late fee, Territory Marks. 80s Kids Unite, TV Obscura.
Obscura.
It's all wrapped up together.
It's quite an adventure
our
we're on
full-time
together, buddy.
job. Yeah, this is amazing. I love it. It is probably the greatest time of my life creatively right now. I love it.
I feel the exact same way, man. Truly, I feel the exact same fucking way. So thank you all who support us. Really appreciate it. Thank you everyone who also supports $2 late fee. You know, we know we have a lot of crossover and everything, but thank you all so much who support both shows. You guys are fucking heroes. Seriously, fucking heroes.
Yeah, thank you. Everybody who supports us. Thank you.
Yeah. Love you all. And as always,
roar! We'll get you on the dark side. Roar! I'm Godzilla. Roar!
I hated everything about that.
That's terrible.
Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.
In a world that has been completely divided for so long, two movie fans have decided to unite for the people and the betterment of mankind. One, an action movie buff. The other, a horror movie fanatic. Together, they will try to bridge the gap of both genres into one podcast with their battle cry, "Give me back my action and horror movies." Listen along as Charlie and Nate alternate each week talking about action and horror movies they cherish, mostly from the VHS era. Also, including some modern examples that felt like the movies they grew up with by answering the battle cry, "Give me back my action and horror movies." Available wherever you listen to podcasts. Look them up on Facebook and Instagram.